Everything begins on a quiet night. Inside a convenience store, the MC decides to take a picture of the shelves. Right after, he places a bottle of soda on the counter, and the cashier asks if he will pay with that beverage, and the customer confirms without hesitating. Suddenly, something unexpected happens. The employee says that it was an excellent choice and attacks the MC by surprise. And after suffering the attack, our MC is shocked to see the cashier's creepy smile. And to understand what happened, let's go back exactly 1 hour in time to explain everything. It all starts with our MC at his computer. He reveals he is completely addicted to seeking new challenges that bring adrenaline to his life. He has tried everything from following rock bands to focusing on various sports championships. Besides that, he ventured into extreme sports like martial arts and airplane skydiving. All this relentless search was just a desperate way to get more and more dopamine. When he felt he couldn't get any more thrills from these activities, he decided to shift his focus. He decided to switch to online games in an attempt to overcome this huge mental block. Actually, games were the one thing he wanted to avoid due to a trauma from his past. Whenever he played, he remembered his mother who never answered his dozens of missed calls. However, the worst habits are usually the ones we start to develop later in life. The more he played, the more he felt the need to seek even more extreme experiences. With that, he ended up consuming all kinds of post-apocalyptic games he could find among all the titles available on the market. One specific game managed to catch his attention. The game was called Apocalypse Safe Zone and had a very interesting premise for the players. The story shows Earth being hit by a meteor that starts a terrible ice age. Because of the devastating impact, most of humanity ended up meeting a tragic end. Many years later, a relatively warm interglacial period finally brought hope to the world to survive the extreme cold. The few remaining humans built the so-called safe zones. That was the whole basic setting of the game that the MC was about to completely master. The virtual world was divided into 9 safe zones with very peculiar and curious item names. Players could start the match in any of the areas except for the mysterious knife zone. If the player's identification number was too low, he would start directly as number 1. Surviving the beginning of the game required a lot of preparation so as not to be wiped out before receiving rewards. Everything got worse when the character turned 20 years old because that was when the second apocalypse began. The first phase of the game basically served as a period of training and preparation for the tests. The young man knew very well that the real fun would only start after this initial stage was overcome. As soon as the second apocalypse actually began, players entered a real survival mode. People needed to ally with players from other areas to face the extreme dangers. At that moment, it became clear that the harder your starting area was, the greater the challenge would be. On the other hand, starting in a complex location guaranteed much higher base stats for the hero. Furthermore, the treasures hidden in the most dangerous areas of the map were simply extraordinary. This gave a huge urge to eliminate all the survivors who came from easy areas of the game. These insane mechanics were the real reason the young man kept playing for so long. However, this entire virtual journey was about to come to an end on that exact day for the MC. He finally manages to clear the last stage and slams his fist on the keyboard, celebrating the achievement. The guy managed to see all the possible endings of each area, including the dreaded and secret knife zone. After achieving this unprecedented feat, he takes off his headphones in absolute silence in the darkroom. The young man picks up his phone, thinking that the time has finally come to do a very important task. He decides to post an extremely detailed guide of the game to help the player community. A little while later, the cell phone starts to vibrate with a notification from a new anonymous comment. A frequent user named Home Protector immediately makes a joke about the absurd difficulty of that guide. The user comments in horror that the enemies in that secret region usually wipe everyone out without mercy. The guy decides to leave the provocative comments aside for now and focus on other things. He receives a message asking how he chose the starting area and answers very simply. The other users are completely shocked by the craziness of his survival strategy. The MC just watches the discussion on his computer screen with a thoughtful look. Suddenly, one of the players decides to block the guy because he thinks his guide is way too dangerous. He is indignant to realize that he was actually blocked because of his gaming tips. Another user complains about the extreme difficulty of his guide, but the young man doesn't think he exaggerated. Fortunately, he finds a comment from someone very grateful for all the help they received. This makes the guy realize that there are actually people who find his guides very useful. With his duty fulfilled, the young man decides that the time has finally come to take the next step. He mentally says goodbye to the game, knowing he has completed absolutely everything he could there, walking through the dark streets of the city. He begins to wonder what he will do from now on. The young man feels his adrenaline and dopamine levels dropping rapidly without the challenges. He knows he urgently needs to find a new stimulus to fill the void in his life. At that moment, his gaze is suddenly drawn to something very curious in the middle of the way. The guy comes across a mysterious convenience store that he had never seen there before. A bell rings softly, announcing his entry into the mysterious commercial establishment. Looking at the shelves, he notices that the stock is full of items identical to those in his game. The place has exactly the same products that would be part of a safe zone in the virtual game. He thinks it's bizarre that a game with no local version could have collaborated with this store. The young man concludes that the store owner must just be another addict obsessed with the same game. He takes photos and remembers that he sent the address of this weird place to a follower on the internet. The cashier snaps him out of his thoughts by asking if he's only going to take that Coca-Cola. The guy wonders if the employee is bothered by the photos he took of the shelves. He just waits for service with a calm expression, not imagining the danger that approaches. The employee says the bottle doesn't have a barcode and attacks the MC from behind. A violent blow is struck while the attacker coldly says that this was a great choice. The young man falls severely injured on the store floor, seeing the damage he took spread across the ground. Suddenly, he wakes up startled in a totally different place, wearing a military uniform. The MC realizes that he just received the biggest and most intense dose of dopamine of his life. Next to him, a blonde guy screams in panic, not understanding what is happening in that place. The MC asks the blonde if he also bought the Coca-Cola at that convenience store. He goes further and questions if the guy's internet username is Room Corner Hubby. The blonde is shocked, and the two start arguing, calling each other internet weirdos. The boy defends himself by saying that everyone trash talks online and asks what the guy's nickname is. The MC realizes the irony of having entered the game right next to someone he blocked. Knowing the situation would get really awkward, he decides to hide that his nickname is Dopamine Addict without many options. The guy decides to invent a fake name so as not to reveal his true identity. He confidently introduces himself to his companion using the codename T-Bastard. The two start walking together while the MC confirms how the blonde got the address. The blonde falls into despair upon realizing that the dangerous place is the real universe of the game. The young man understands that his follower, Home Protector, leaked the location he had shared. Because of that, the poor kid went there, ended up being attacked, and was dragged into this world. The MC begins to analyze the situation and realizes that things are much more complex. He considers the possibility that there are other real-world players trapped inside this same game. If that's true, they will have to face players from other areas as soon as the apocalypse begins. This means they will need to risk everything in real confrontations against other humans. But the guy decides to focus only on immediate survival, leaving those concerns for later. At this, the blonde gets excited and asks if they can use the classic game system in this world. He explains that he's talking about quests, virtual item shops, and stat point distribution. The blonde boy starts yelling desperately, trying to summon a status screen in his inventory. He keeps shouting all possible online game commands, but the silence around them remains absolute. Absolutely nothing happens, and the young man falls to his knees on the ground, completely frustrated by not having a system. The blonde complains a lot about being thrown into that dangerous place in kids' bodies, and with no advantages. The MC watches him grumble about how he should have been a better person and avoided swearing so much. The boy lets out a long sigh and sits on the freezing ground, trying to accept his terrible new reality. He then asks the MC what they are going to do now and what stage of the Coca-Cola zone he managed to reach. The guy thinks about his real progress, knowing that he actually managed to finish the entire game all the way to the end. However, he decides to lie so as not to reveal that he is the guide creator and to keep things simpler between them. The MC falsely claims he only made it to the unicorn area, leaving the blonde boy very surprised. The boy accuses him of lying, as very few people manage to get that far, even among the creator's followers. The blonde then starts to suspect that the guide author might have also been pulled into this twisted world. The MC finds that reaction very curious and calmly asks his companion to cool down a bit. He starts to remember all the comments he used to receive and realizes that this boy was a frequent visitor. The guy says he is a huge fan of the guide creator and asks if the blonde didn't also comment on every post. The blonde boy looks away, slightly embarrassed, and ends up confirming his frequent participation in the community. He starts to get extremely irritated and red with anger when remembering what happened on the internet. The boy confesses that he carefully read every line of instruction from that guide with great dedication. He explodes with rage, complaining that the post creator unjustly blocked him, even though he supported the work. The MC finally understands that the boy doesn't hate him, but just had a jealous fit over being blocked. The blonde keeps grumbling indignantly about being stuck right next to another follower of that creator. The guy finds the situation funny and starts to think that his new companion might not be such a bad person after all. The boy changes the subject and asks again what their plan will be to survive from now on. At that moment, the MC displays a mysterious and challenging smile on his face as he outlines his goal. He reveals that he intends to use the famous and dangerous illegitimate child strategy to advance in the story. This was one of the most daring and secret tactics that the guy himself had shared with the community. The Coca-Cola Zone is located in an extreme snow region governed by a powerful, heavily armed military faction. The supreme leader and absolute commander of that feared combat force is named Hayden Goodman. The plan consists of posing as a bastard son of the great commander to manage to inherit all his power. The blonde is completely horrified and asks if the guy has completely lost his mind to try something so risky. He begs his friend not to do this because the real world is totally different and more dangerous than the game. The MC ignores the advice and tells the boy to go his own way if he's too scared. The blonde runs after him, stuttering and trying to deny that he is terrified of that absurd situation. The boy warns that lying to the feared military commander could literally cost them everything. The MC just smiles at his companion's cowardice, who tries to cover it up by saying he's just worried about him. Deep down, the guy doesn't blame his colleague for feeling such terror in the face of such a hostile and freezing environment. After all, the two were suddenly thrown into a violent virtual world out of nowhere. They are now trapped in fragile bodies of 10-year-old children in a place where any mistake could be fatal. But for some very strange reason that the MC can't quite explain, the situation excites him. He surprisingly realizes that he isn't feeling absolutely any hint of fear towards the danger. On the contrary, the guy is feeling a massive wave of adrenaline that he thought he would never experience again. Moreover, he states that he is the only one taking risks with the lie and doesn't mind going out trying. The young man even jokes, saying that maybe if he is eliminated in this world, he might finally wake up in real life. The blonde is extremely shocked and asks what will happen if he actually ends up getting taken out in the process. The MC smiles, saying it's all part of the quest for dopamine, and the boy calls him absolutely crazy. The blonde falls into a silent despair, pulling his hair out because he can't deal with the guy's madness. He then asks what he should do since the MC intends to carry out the risky plan alone. The guy says he has already thought of everything and knows the perfect place to shelter his scared companion. The MC asks if he has ever served in the army, and the blonde answers irritably that he just turned 20 years old. With this answer, the guy finally understands why his companion acts in such a spoiled and childish way. The guy explains that the fact the boy has never served in the army before makes his plan much easier. He gives a confident smile as he plans the ideal destination for his scared gaming companion nearby. It's possible to see the military faction's guards watching the base entrance with their weapons. The group of armed soldiers maintains order in the strict location under the heavy snowstorm falling from that dark sky. The MC then reveals to the boy that he will mandatorily have to enlist in the local army. The blonde goes into a total panic, not understanding why he needs to enter military life so suddenly. The guy calms him down, reminding him that they are now just two orphans with absolutely no resources or shelter in the world. The history of that apocalyptic world was shaped so that humanity needs to fight against alien creatures. Everything started when a gigantic meteorite fell from the sky, freezing the planet and bringing terrible monsters. This invasion of mutant beasts generated the survival rules of all the existing safe zones in the game. Because of the imminent danger, the Unicorn Zone faction decided to flee and build their bases high up in the sky. The beer area preferred to hide in the depths of the ocean, while the other zones had to fight. The MC knows that enlisting now means they will soon be sent into a terrible real war. Even in bodies of only 10 years old, the recruits are forced to fight in the monster extermination missions. As abandoned orphans, they have no family to protect them, nor even a safe residence to live in. Enlistment guarantees hot food, shelter, and the great opportunity to learn how to handle real firearms. The blonde lets out a tired sigh, accepting that this is indeed the only viable option to manage to survive. He worries because he doesn't know how to speak English and questions how he will communicate with the other soldiers at the base. The MC remembers that the game was never translated, and he only learned the language to create the guides. The blizzard continues to fall heavily on the old stone buildings that make up the strict military base. A letter sealed with red wax containing the official registration is delivered for the commander's approval. The guy warns that he has already submitted both of their registration forms and that now they just have to wait for their answer. Since the area accepts children at 10 years of age to fight, the MC is certain they will be approved. The blonde gets furious noticing that even the military files are in English, with no translation to help them. The MC tries to reassure him, saying that the boy just needs to answer yes sir to any order received. The thoughtful boy observes his surroundings and begins to notice a very curious detail about the other soldiers there. He realizes that the two of them seem to be the only people in the entire military base communicating in Korean. The most bizarre thing of all is that none of the other recruits seem to care at all about this huge difference. The guy deduces that this cultural mix of nationalities is a natural consequence of the game's own rules. He advises the blonde to write down all important notes in Korean so the locals won't be able to read them. The guy warns that as soon as they officially join the army, they won't be able to act together on the base anymore. The blonde is shocked by the news that they will have to follow completely opposite paths from then on. He remembers that the MC must have real military experience, since he asked such specific questions earlier. The guy then good-humoredly invites him to face the strict mandatory military service by his side once again. The blonde is startled by his friend's coldness, as he explains that a joint plan could speed up finishing the game. The blonde boy becomes thoughtful, repeating the word together, mentally and seriously considering that proposal. The MC begins to wonder how many other real-world players might have also been tossed in there. He decides he needs to create a very clear code of conduct in case he ends up meeting these other trapped players. Next, the young man orders the blonde to memorize all the instructions given so as not to act like a useless soldier at the base. The guy starts to walk away, warning that for now, their play will have to be strictly solo. The blonde boy screams desperately, demanding to know one last very important detail before his companion leaves. He wants to know what English name the MC wrote on his official enlistment form. The guy avoids answering, and the officer in charge of screening finds the peculiar nickname written on the paper very strange. The blonde discovers with rage that he was registered under a ridiculous code name and screams in anger upon realizing the huge joke. Meanwhile, the MC celebrates that his companion's enlistment went perfectly well, and without any problems, the guy now prepares to focus entirely on his own secret mission, which is about to begin. His top priority right now is to find the exact location of the mysterious grave belonging to Luna Moon. The deceased woman was buried along with a valuable pendant that serves as crucial proof of the illegitimate child. He remembers that in the original game, Commander Hayden Goodman initially belonged to another zone on the map. The military leader almost lost his life in the past, but was miraculously saved by a brave soldier from that area. The guy recalls that the brave soldier who saved the young commander's life was named Luna Moon over time. The two ended up falling in love, and she became pregnant with the couple's first child. However, to manage to inherit all the faction's power, the commander married his superior's daughter. The man promised that as soon as he assumed full control, he would come back for Luna Moon and the child. Unfortunately, the commander would never be able to fulfill that solemn promise made in the past. All because Luna Moon ended up disappearing mysteriously, leaving no clues about her whereabouts. A sudden sound of breaking glass makes the MC open his eyes and snap back to the cold reality. A drunk man grumbles outside while the young man hides in the shadows so as not to be seen. The guy realizes he needs to be extremely cautious because it would be a huge disaster if he were caught there. He remembers that in the game, the commander ordered a thorough search of every inch of that region. The young man begins to open the stone tombstone in absolute silence under the dim light of the full moon. He focuses all his attention on his search, not letting any distraction get in his way. At this moment, he knows very well that the poor soldier Luna Moon had already passed away many years ago in that place. The MC feels slight remorse for disturbing the grave, but knows he has no other alternative. After all, the crucial item to carry out the bold, illegitimate child strategy is hidden inside there. Upon touching the grave, the guy gets a scare upon noticing something totally unexpected about the site. The dirt around the tombstone is extremely loose and soft, which makes the young man very suspicious. The MC immediately suspects that another real-world player might have gotten there before him in the past. A terrible illness completely devastated the slums, where the soldier Luna Moon was taking shelter. Even with everyone fleeing, she decided to stay behind to treat the sick as a military medic. She ended up catching the illness, and the surviving patients built that grave in her honor. A lone crow watches the scene from the top of a dry branch under the cold sky covered in fine snow. The young man laments the medic's tragic fate while using a metal shovel to dig the soft earth. Because of the old plague outbreak, the area is now completely isolated, which facilitates the guy's secret action. The MC notices that the wooden coffin was already slightly tampered with, just as he suspected. Opening it, he finds only remains and notes that the famous military dog tag is missing. The game's standard plan consisted of recovering this metal dog tag and handing it over to the leader. Only with this proof would the player be able to be officially recognized as the commander's lost son. The remains are missing the military object, confirming that someone else indeed tampered with the grave before him. The guy realizes he really arrived too late and that another mysterious player has already taken the metal tag. However, instead of despairing, the MC thinks the challenge just made the situation even more fun. He doesn't worry, because he holds secret information that he never wrote in any of his online guides. The real identification item the commander gave to his beloved Luna Moon was never the military dog tag. The guy reaches his hand toward the remains chest to search for the true proof of love. He finds a glowing ring made from a fragment of the meteorite that devastated the Earth in the past. Normally, the tag was enough, but since it was stolen, the Moonstone ring is the young man's only way out. The young man believes the deceased soldier would never want to see that precious ring in the hands of thieves. He apologizes for disturbing her eternal rest and for pretending to be her legitimate son from then on. The young man promises that in exchange, he will take very good care of the commander, acting like a true, devoted son. He puts the beautiful ring on his finger, swearing that he will do absolutely everything to survive that apocalypse. Suddenly, an intense blue energy starts to emanate from the MC's body in an overwhelming way. A mysterious message appears in the air, saying he has taken a major step toward the secrets of the world's end. The game system is partially unlocked and offers an exclusive reward for someone who cleared all the areas. The guy is surprised by the bonus and decides he urgently needs to find a way to connect with other players. He presses the virtual confirmation button to check what special ability will be granted to him. The system greets him by his internet nickname and grants a list of powerful titles as a reward. The special effects of the titles help gain the trust of important characters in the game universe. Since he will have a very important meeting with the commander tomorrow, he decides to equip the Friend of Luna Moon title. The young man realizes that, while other players started from zero, he has a gigantic advantage in the match. While looking at the glowing jewel, he wonders what the objective of whoever dragged them into the game could be. Suddenly, a system message warns that the effects of the Friend of Luna Moon title are activating. The guy is confused to see that the title's passive ability started working out of nowhere in that exact location. Since this message only appears when there's an affected character nearby, he finds it weird, thinking he is alone. The MC decides to ignore the mysterious warning and grips his shovel tightly to finish the job quickly. He starts covering the wooden coffin with dirt again, thinking it best not to worry about that mystery. The young man wonders if the mysterious thief who stole the metal military tag has already gone straight to the leader's house. The story shows the imposing and luxurious official residence of the great military commander, Hayden Goodman. Upon arriving at the mansion's entrance, the guards stop the 10-year-old guy, asking what he wants at that place. The MC confidently states that he has valuable information about the heir the leader is looking for. The guards are surprised to note that the supposed heir's prediction about the young man's arrival was true. One of the guards asks the guy to follow him to the hall because the young heir is already waiting for his visit. The MC finds that reception very strange and realizes things are not going as he planned. He follows the soldier down the luxurious hallway, suspecting that some other player might be involved in this entering the hall. The MC is welcomed by a young man who appears to be his age. The unknown guy bluntly asks if the MC is also a real-world player of that game. The system reveals that the other red-haired boy is named Taejong Taesebeyonce and is in the same faction. The group's leader celebrates the fact they can speak in Korean without any of the local guards understanding them. The MC just feigns surprise, maintaining his firm posture while listening to the other players' explanations. He notes that the group doesn't show any immediate hostility and asks why they are waiting for others. The other boy says with a smile that the MC is too impatient and suggests they exchange names first. The MC stays alert, noticing they want to exchange nicknames to identify each other within the game. He realizes that since their systems aren't unlocked, they are incapable of reading his real game data. The guy decides to use the fake name T-Bastard again, planning to trick them just like he did before. The mysterious boy takes a step forward with an extremely confident look to make his introduction to the guy's total surprise. The boy states with a proud smile that his name is Dopamine Addict. The MC is completely speechless upon hearing the imposter assuming his true in-game identity. The imposter thinks the young man's shock is from recognizing the fame of the true owner of the best strategy guide. He brags, saying he used to be an extremely famous player in all the forums of that virtual community. The real Dopamine Addict is indignant to see that the liar is trying to pass himself off as him in such a ridiculous way. The liar looks down on him, saying he seems to have come without a plan and suggests he just leave at once. The imposter shows off the stolen dog tag, saying it's impossible to complete the mission without that object. The MC stares at him in silence. Finding that boy's audacity and overconfidence very interesting, the liar then suggests the MC work under his command, just like the red-haired boy is doing. The freckled, red-haired boy just listens to the conversation in silence, maintaining a docile and submissive posture to the leader. The guy finally understands what is happening behind all that pathetic act. By the imposter players unable to adapt to that violent world will be eliminated before even attempting any plan. Meanwhile, the smarter ones would team up to use naive players as mere pawns in their power schemes. To manage to become the commander's legitimate heir, the imposter knows he will need useful allies at the base. The guy rejects the rival's offer, making it very clear to himself that he will never cooperate with that liar. However, the MC pretends to accept and orders him to call the commander to initiate the risky plan. He promises to testify in favor of the imposter, secretly planning to show how the real tactic is executed. The guy watches in silence as the liar walks away excitedly to call the feared commander to the Great Hall. Taking advantage of the fact the liar left to get the leader, the guy decides to investigate the other member of that group. He approaches the quiet, messy-haired, red-haired boy and calls him to talk in a direct and firm manner. The guy asks if he also came to try the same military strategy and ended up agreeing to ally with the imposter. The redhead reveals that he actually woke up in that mysterious world right next to the supposed dopamine addict from the very start. The MC finds the boy's behavior incredibly cooperative and easy to deal with by his standards. The guy wonders why he agreed to follow that liar when he could have just enlisted on his own. The redhead confesses with dread that there was no way he wanted to face the exhausting army routine again. The MC realizes the redhead has the large physical build of a veteran, understanding why he is so useful to the rival. The MC asks if the redhead isn't mad at the guide creator for leaking the address of that dangerous store. But to the guy's complete surprise, the red-haired boy reveals that he was actually very happy with everything that happened. The redhead clenches his fist excitedly, saying the chance to play alongside his great idol makes his heart race. He yells that he is Dopamine Addict's biggest fan, making the MC realize this boy isn't entirely right in the head either. The redhead praises his idol's genius, while the real guide creator just watches him with a perplexed expression. With a serious look, the red-haired boy advises the guy to follow all the leader's orders if he wants to survive the apocalypse. The MC finds that boy's personality very peculiar and decides to ask one more question to clear things up. He asks point blank if the young redhead is truly an absolute, unconditional supporter of the legendary guide creator. The red-haired boy blushes slightly and confirms without hesitation that he supports his idol above anyone else in that world. The MC calmly says that he passed the test, leaving the poor red-haired boy extremely confused by that. The young man tries to ask the meaning of that mysterious phrase, but is interrupted by the violent sound of the door swinging open. The imposing commander Hayden Goodman enters the hall, demanding to know who the person is that claims to know his heir. A system screen appears, revealing that the special effect of the Friend of Luna Moon title was successfully applied to the leader. Because of the legendary ring, the system notifies that the affection bonus with the great commander was just doubled in value. The feared commander approaches and kneels before the MC, leaving the guy completely in shock at the gesture. The man looks deep into the MC's eyes and says with an emotional voice that the guy looks very much like the deceased. The guy wonders if the special effect of the ring actually alters his physical appearance to make him look identical to the deceased beloved. The imposter player watches that dramatic scene from afar and starts trembling with fear, not understanding the room's tense atmosphere. The imposter yells demanding the promised testimony, and the MC calmly asks the commander to examine an object. The young man extends the palm of his hand, revealing the glowing ring that he claims is a sacred keepsake of his deceased mother. Upon seeing the rare jewel, the experienced military leader stands completely static and speechless at that revelation. The liar wonders what that old ring is. While the leader demands to know the true meaning behind all of it, the man stands up furiously and confronts the imposter, reminding him that the boy had sworn to be his legitimate lost son. He angrily says that his beloved's ring inexplicably ended up in the hands of a completely different person. The imposter falls into despair and accuses the MC of stealing his jewelry, screaming that the dog tags were supposed to be the proof. The powerful leader orders the liar to shut his mouth immediately, making the terrified player freeze in fear right on the spot. The man warns with a deadly glare that he will have no mercy on kids if he catches any more lies from him. The red-haired boy is in shock upon realizing that the strategy guide contained incorrect information about the real proof. The imposter breaks into a cold sweat upon realizing the gravity of his terrible miscalculation in the face of the military leader's fury. The liar stares at the MC suspiciously and begins to question who that mysterious guy really is. He yells, demanding to know the real identity of the guy, who just answers with a sarcastic question and a smile on his face. The system announces that the player failed the mission, while the imposter finally begins to deduce who the guy really is. The system begins the elimination process of the failed player, who immediately collapses unconscious on the mansion floor. The MC is surprised to see that all of the eliminated player's items were automatically transferred to his account. The leader orders the boy to be taken to the infirmary, while the MC remembers an obscure rule from the virtual game. He knows that item transfer in safe zones only occurs during combat eliminations and wonders if his rival passed away. The guy ponders whether elimination actually sends the player's soul back to reality, while the redhead cries in despair. The redhead panics, hitting the wall, not understanding the leader's sudden collapse, and the MC tells him to calm down. He coldly reveals to the desperate red-haired boy that the liar who passed out was never his beloved dopamine addict. The guy recalls the fan's old comments and asks how he could claim to be so devoted without recognizing the real hero. The MC shows a slight smirk and finally reveals to the shocked boy that he is the real dopamine addict. The red-haired boy asks if the guy is truly his leader, while the MC says he doesn't know because he lacks the system. The MC easily visualizes the opponent's data from afar through his own active system screen. The guy reveals the redhead's real internet nickname out loud, leaving the poor boy completely speechless on the spot. The MC states with conviction that there is no way he would make such an amateur mistake at the beginning of his own journey. The redhead bows, apologizing 1,000 times, knowing his great idol would never fail in a real game strategy. The young man screams with joy, but the MC orders him to keep quiet so as not to reveal his true identity just yet. The MC seriously explains that not all players in that world will be friendly and helpful to the two of them. He orders the redhead to only call him by the leader's son's name, and the boy immediately agrees, nodding his head. The guy promises to help the redhead survive in that dangerous zone as long as he cooperates and does his best there. The MC plans to free him from mandatory military service and realizes the boy is very easy to manipulate. Even though the difficulty of that area is considered low, the guy knows things are still dangerous in that world, limited by the fragile body of a child. He concludes that the best choice to win is to gather the highest number of allies. The guy puts his hand firmly in his uniform pocket, deciding to focus on the next step of his dangerous and bold journey. A new and mysterious quest about the hidden secrets of the world's end is suddenly activated on his virtual control screen. He already knew that each area holds a special meteorite item, but is surprised by the appearance of that new message. It's the first time in history that a warning about the secrets of the world's end appears so clearly and directly in the system. The system is partially unlocked right after, opening up new and powerful game mechanics for the hero to use. The young man realizes he will need to collect all the other special items from other zones if he wants to discover the whole truth. The guy initially thought it was enough to just stop the apocalypse, but now understands he needs to uncover its secrets. The MC displays a slight, thoughtful smile, realizing that the reality of that world is indeed quite different from the game. The guy advises the red-haired boy to tell the leader that he was completely fooled by the other cheating player. He warns that the leader will definitely be suspicious of the redhead and promises to introduce him to a new player who can help him. The redhead remembers the bad reputation of the foul-mouthed forum user, and the MC silently confirms that the guy is the same dude. The young man orders the redhead to cooperate with the other ally in the future, and the boy agrees on the spot, confirming he'll follow through. The MC shifts his attention and looks surprised at his companion when the red-haired boy tries to bring up a new topic. The redhead confesses with a doubtful look that he also suspected that fake follower was actually Isekid. The red-haired boy explains that many veteran forum players started disappearing after the address of that store leaked. Driven by immense curiosity, all the addicts decided to go visit the establishment, and he ended up going there too. He says he ended up meeting a mysterious guy at that market who introduced himself. Using the strange fake codename, the cashier thought the purchase of a knife was weird, and the guy said he intended to test the secret strategy of that hidden area. The store cashier gave an enigmatic smile, commenting that this was indeed the most difficult hidden area in the entire game. The red-haired boy remembers that the mysterious dark-haired guy paid for the knife at the counter and left the place right after. The MC begins to reason in silence and deduces with dread what that other player's true starting area was. He feels a bit guilty knowing the other player ended up dropping into the worst starting zone, but tries to ignore the remorse. The redhead asks if the MC also took a heavy blow to the head, and the guy reacts confused by that question. The redhead says firmly that the cashier hit him on the head with a barcode scanner just as he was leaving. He asks if the MC wasn't attacked in that same way, and the guy shakes his head, denying having gone through that. The MC remembers the violent bottle strike he took from the cashier and gets furious upon realizing the sheer cowardice of the blow. He decides to focus on the present and orders the redhead to remember to lie to the guards if interrogated by the generals at that exact moment. The loud creak of the imposing wooden door opening suddenly interrupts their secret conversation. A soldier in a white uniform appears in the entrance hall and firmly announces that the great commander demands the young man's presence. The MC confirms out loud and prepares to officially kick off his plan to deceive the leader of that fortress. The guy walks alone toward the luxurious banquet hall where the imposing leader awaits him seated at the head of the table. He sits in the dining table chair, knowing the hidden bonuses of his prestige title are acting powerfully. The commander affectionately says he sent the other boy to rest and calls him endearingly by his heir's name. The experienced man vents with melancholy, saying he spent many years of his life trying to find them without success. The guy calmly says his mother took shelter on the edges of the slums, and the startled leader asks if she is still living there. The young man reveals that his deceased mother's grave is in that humble place, leaving the military commander utterly shattered on the spot. The man clenches his fist extremely hard on the luxurious dining table upon hearing the terrible news of her passing. The regretful leader swears to make up for all the long years of abandonment, and the MC recognizes that famous line from the game. The commander promises to make him his sole heir, and the guy celebrates the success of his bold bastard strategy. The system screen pops up, confirming the success of the plan and unlocking the choice of 3 special rewards for the hero. The young man knows that the choice of these prizes will decide whether the commander actually considers him worthy to take over the leadership role. The commander asks what he wishes to receive, and the MC knows very well what his first special request should be. He says with a gentle look that his greatest wish is for the commander to frequently visit his deceased mother's grave. The guy plans to use these frequent visits to increase his political influence at the base and raise his successor points. The emotional military commander agrees on the spot, promising that he will certainly visit his beloved now that he knows where she is. The system confirms that the first request was successfully accepted, leaving now only 2 choices of rewards to make. The commander silently observes the dirty sleeves of the boy's uniform and seems to notice something unusual about his bruised hands. The man says they first need to take care of an important detail, leaving the MC confused by that pause. He points to the abundant dining table, saying their priority right now is to enjoy a delicious meal together. The young man analyzes the luxurious real food dishes, realizing that all the ingredients are extremely rare items in that world. The leader apologizes for the simplicity of the dinner, but the guy thanks him, saying that food is more than enough. Meanwhile, the red-haired boy continues to apologize on his knees to the base officers, and their plan proceeds perfectly. The MC decides to relax and takes a big bite out of a warm cornbread to test the taste of that food. Suddenly, the cornbread vanishes from his hand instantly and mysteriously, making the guy jump in his chair from the scare. He is bewildered to note the sudden disappearance of the food without him even chewing or swallowing a piece of it. The guy rests his hand, startled, on the wooden table, trying to understand the bizarre phenomenon he just witnessed there. The commander points, startled, at the young man's hands, and the MC fears his lie has been exposed at that moment. The man gets up quickly and holds the guy's hand firmly, confirming with relief that he wasn't imagining things earlier. The MC looks closely at his own fingers and realizes in amazement that all his injuries have completely vanished. He widens his eyes, unable to believe that the terrible wound on his skin simply disappeared without leaving a trace. The young man examines the details of his fingers, confirming that the miraculous healing indeed happened instantly in his body. The guy deduces that the food vanished to be instantly absorbed as a healing item from the game that restores health points. The MC starts to recall his first moments in that place and notes that many things were already weird from the start. He remembers that, ever since waking up in that fragile child's body, he hasn't felt absolutely any sign of hunger or thirst. He concludes that his game body doesn't need normal meals, and that food only serves to restore health points. The young man clearly perceives that all the mechanical rules of the virtual world are being directly applied to his real life. This means he can quickly heal from any severe damage just by consuming food items from that world. Since this advantage wasn't exclusive to his special title, he deduces that all Iseki'd players also share it. The guy plans to test the limits of this regeneration later and calls the redhead to hand him a piece of the leftover food. While the leader reflects with concern, the young man tries to come up with a convincing justification to explain that medical miracle. The MC tries to start an explanation, but the attentive leader interrupts him, saying he doesn't need to say anything else. The commander emotionally states that the late Luna Moon also possessed that exact same miraculous healing ability in the past. He comments that many imposters tried to fool him throughout his life, falsely claiming to be his legitimate children. The experienced man states bitterly that all the previous candidates were lying scammers who just wanted his power. He sincerely thanks the guy for coming to find him and for being the only living proof of his beloved late partner's love. A respectful silence settles in the large hall while both characters share that intense meal together. However, the MC mutters, highly intrigued in silence, finding that information from the military leader extremely bizarre. He remembers very well that in the original game, there was no character programmed with that kind of healing skill. An intriguing doubt pops into his mind about the possibility of Luna Moon herself also having been a real player. He feels relieved for not blowing his cover, but knows he now has many new mysteries to unravel there. The guy begins to ponder what the true hidden connection between the beautiful Moonstone ring and the start of the apocalypse could be. He needs to confirm if the deceased soldier really possessed a healing power, or if this whole story hides something worse. The MC would very much like to interrogate the commander directly about the details of that army medic's past. However, he knows that asking such specific questions now could easily raise suspicions about his real identity. The boy decides to change tactics, catching the attention of the experienced man who listens to him closely at the luxurious dining table. He politely says there is a very special favor he would like to ask, and the attentive leader tells him to go ahead. The young man asks to be able to have lunch with other orphans his age every month, and the system confirms that the second wish was accepted. The leader asks the reason for such a curious request, and the guy explains that many local children suffer from hunger and the cold. He claims he was very lucky to receive that good meal, and says he would like to be able to help the other children there. Deep down, all of that is just an excuse, because he knows that only real players can absorb the food in the game. He concludes that gathering all the orphans at the same dining table will make it infinitely easier to manage and lead the group. Moreover, he knows this tactic will perfectly serve to win the absolute trust of the kids his age. However, the young man knows very well that his entire genius plan depends entirely on the strict military commander's approval. The boy understands the leader's hesitation. Since the request to feed the orphans might look like a political welfare maneuver, he takes a calm sip from his teacup, knowing that this wouldn't be a totally impossible favor to fulfill by any means. The commander thoughtfully ponders, commenting that in tough times of war, the expenses to feed everyone would be very high. Knowing this, the clever boy decides to use the guilt tactic and humbly states that for him, a simple glass of water is enough. The guy adds that on the cold streets, when he had nothing to eat, he had to feed on melted snow. He places the empty cup on the table and asks with a sad look for the leader to consider his request for help just once. To deliver the final blow and ensure the absolute success of his charade, the MC affectionately calls the commander Father. The man is extremely shaken by the word and accepts the request right away, confirming he will organize the banquet next month later in the silent hallways of the mansion. The MC is guided to a luxurious room to get his well-deserved night's sleep. The attentive commander enters the quarters and wishes for his supposed son to have a good and peaceful night's rest in the soft bed. The young man lies down under the warm blankets and wishes the man a good night, maintaining his docile act until the very last second there. The experienced military man leaves the room in absolute silence, carrying a deeply thoughtful and melancholic look on his face. Under the bright light of the full moon, the man silently laments not having been strong enough to protect his beloved in the past. He gently strokes the sleeping young man's hair, feeling he is still too young to understand the entire real truth. The commander promises that he will reveal absolutely all of his secrets in the future, as long as the young man does the same for him. As soon as the man leaves, the MC opens his eyes in the dim light, mentally confirming that he will hold up his end of the bargain. The guy concludes that the progress made that night was more than satisfactory, and that he got everything he needed for now. He turns on his side in the comfortable bed, getting ready to finally get some rest after that long and exhausting day. The guy remembers the commander insisting on being called father and shows a small, victorious smirk on his face. The MC rests his head on the pillow, satisfied to note how the trick of calling him father actually works perfectly. He knows he will need to use this strong influence in the future when he needs the experienced leader to manage his shelters. Suddenly, a glowing system window appears floating in the air, notifying that the global chat room has finally been activated. He quickly sits up in bed, startled to realize that a second player managed to unlock their own system in the game. He decides to investigate if the meteorite items are indeed the mandatory condition required to perform the unlock. The young man extends his index finger and firmly presses the blue virtual button to enter the chat room with the others. A blue notification officially announces to all members that the legendary dopamine addict just connected to the group. The guy is shocked to see that the second user to enter the secret chat room uses the codename T-Bastard. He remembers that the rival is in the knife area and that the items there are crucial for the dangerous total extermination strategy. The dreaded knife zone is known as a terrible den of brutal assassins, where the weak are hunted down without mercy. Because of this, the only way to clear that area is to carry out a complete massacre, eliminating every local inhabitant. Although it seems like a completely impossible mission to pull off, the MC knows very well that there is a secret method. The trick involves using the meteorite dagger from that zone, which grants enough power to defeat enemies with a single strike. The guy remembers that even with the weapon, he only managed to beat that tough stage after getting a game over countless times in the past. He is amazed to note that his rival not only survived that hell, but also unlocked the chat system. The MC flashes a slight intrigued smirk, realizing that things are getting very fun. The rival T-Bastard sends a message questioning his identity and concludes that he is definitely not an ordinary guy. The young man wonders if the rival managed to unlock the system by collecting the meteorite item and how far he has progressed in the game. He confirms that he is indeed the real dopamine addict while trying to stay calm to plan his next move. The guy is taken by surprise with a violent message from the rival promising he is going to find him and take him out in the game. The daylight shines softly over the fine snow-covered roofs of the great military fortress under a clear blue sky. A soldier opens the bedroom door, respectfully advising that the young master needs to wake up because the director wishes to see him soon. The MC looks at the beautiful sunny landscape through the large guest room window while getting ready for the meeting. He wonders where he should head from there to continue his secret plan for political ascension at the base. The young man recalls that he tried in every way to calm his rival's fury last night through the system chat. He acknowledges the rival's great combat skills and decides to send crucial tips about the healing mechanic to help him. The guy notices that his rival's hatred for him is overwhelming and that the warrior insists on his promise to eliminate him no matter what. The hero concludes that the desire to take him down is what keeps the rival alive and focused on surviving the dangers of that extreme zone. The MC remembers that he confirmed his identity in the chat, keeping his calm in the face of the rival's threats of elimination. The opponent sent a direct threat message saying he would find him to take him out, leaving the guy quite intrigued. The beautiful and imposing stone architecture of the military base gleams under the weak winter sunlight bathing the entire region. The young man walks decisively down the mansion's long, elegant hallway toward the office where the director eagerly awaits him. He observes the luxurious decorative details of the polished wooden walls as he approaches the imposing entrance door. The young man meets the director, Murso Pendleton, who comments sarcastically about the appearance of yet another heir there. The MC analyzes the rigid posture of the leader's personal assistant, knowing he is a very influential figure in the place. The guy recalls that, in the original game, he used to poison this suspicious director to make completing the mission easier. The director looks down at him and coldly warns that the boy must show absolute respect, even if he is the legitimate heir. The man reminds him that the leader's legitimate wife is a different noblewoman and says with contempt that the boy is just a bastard son. The MC notes that his arrogant personality is identical to the game's, but he plans to keep him alive this time in the match. He remembers that Mersault was an orphan and a prodigy soldier, highly talented, who earned his position purely through military merit. Behind that cold facade, the director harbored a secret desire to build a loving, united family in the future. All this neediness stemmed from his traumatic and lonely past on the front lines, where he grew up without parental affection. Everything changed in the past when a young and beautiful woman with light hair miraculously appeared before him. The noble lady was Daphne Goodman, and she kindly extended her hand, offering help to the base's young, injured fighter. The guy was completely enchanted by that sincere gesture of affection and kept that beautiful image in his heart. He believed his racing heart was only out of respect for her family's important political position. He thought his romantic feelings for the former general's daughter were just a silly dream, impossible to achieve to suppress that forbidden passion. The young man buried himself completely in his duties and military missions at the base. His life goal became protecting the place where she lived, keeping his feelings locked deep within his soul. However, the peace of his silence was shattered when a new ambitious warrior suddenly appeared in that noble lady's life. The soldier named Hayden ended up marrying Daphne and triumphantly inherited the coveted position of base commander. But upon becoming the leader's personal assistant, the suspicious Mursaw ended up discovering the whole bitter truth behind it. He found out that this sacred union was nothing but a cold political marriage of convenience, with absolutely no love involved. The loyal assistant was highly indignant at the leader's coldness and decided to confront him directly in his office. He firmly stated that he wouldn't have interfered if the noblewoman were happy, but accused the commander of not truly loving her. He demanded that the marriage be annulled immediately, claiming she deserved to live a dignified life full of affection. The commander listened to his subordinate's bold outburst with a serious face, maintaining a calm posture during the argument. He thanked him for the professional praise, but shrewdly pointed out there was something very unusual about the real intentions behind that request. The leader found it strange that such a talented soldier preferred to focus on Daphne's separation instead of seeking his own promotion. He claims that as soon as he finds his heir and passes the position on, his wife will finally be free from it all. The director is shocked to hear this, and the commander decides to ask a direct question to clarify his feelings. The MC brings his attention back to the man and decides to boldly proceed with his own line of reasoning. The guy wants to know if the assistant truly loves Daphne Goodman, and the direct question leaves the director extremely shaken. The man stammers, startled by that sudden inquiry, realizing the young master has uncovered his biggest secret of love. The MC calmly explains that he understands his feelings perfectly and knows the importance of an alliance there. He sincerely reveals that he too has wished for a real family his entire life in that cold, hostile world. The hero decides to change his game tactics this time, secretly planning to bring the loyal and competent Mursaw to his side. After the conversation, the guy starts to wonder if he didn't exaggerate a bit in his act of sympathy to move the subordinate. However, the director's reaction was very positive, and he apologizes respectfully, leaving the young hero more relieved in the room. At that exact moment, a new glowing system window appears floating in the air, immediately drawing the guy's attention. An important chat notification message is sent to his inbox, revealing a big update he already imagined other survivors would unlock the chat soon, but is shocked to see so many logging in at the same time. Suddenly, the dreaded user Home Protector enters the chat room completely desperate, demanding immediate answers. The MC displays a victorious smirk upon seeing the biggest culprit behind this mass isekai event enter the chat. The newcomer recognizes the famous nickname Dopamine Addict on the active member list and asks if he was also dragged. Other users start freaking out in the virtual room, celebrating the presence of the legendary creator and talking about being brought here. The culprit naively admits that everyone went to the mysterious store after seeing the address he had leaked on the internet. The naive guy happily celebrates the virtual reunion, while the MC thinks he is a complete clueless idiot. He remembers that when the second apocalypse actually starts, the easier areas will be mercilessly devastated. Because of this rule, survivors from low-level zones will be forced to quickly migrate to difficult regions. Most rookies try to hide in quiet areas at the beginning, which leads them straight down a path of annihilation. The hero sends a message revealing he is in the Coca-Cola zone and demands to know the current location of every member there. The player named God quickly responds cheerfully, stating that he started his match right in the love area. The user codenamed SSAP Possible reveals next that he began his survival journey locked in the beer area. Other players reveal their zones, and the user Junkie entertains everyone by confessing he is in the dreaded cocaine zone. The MC tells everyone that T-Bastard's area is the dreaded knife, and the other members send terrified condolences. The annoying Home Protector reveals he is in the cigarette area, and the hero concludes he indeed landed in a very easy region. The hero smirks, thinking silently that the one to blame for everything can't be eliminated because he needs to be caught alive in the real world. Despite considering him a complete clueless idiot, the MC admits that, deep down, he likes his laid-back attitude. Suddenly, the suspicious user Dentist begins to question the group, demanding to know why the rival isn't speaking up there. Dentist refuses to reveal his current area, and the hero realizes the suspicious player is acting under immense tension. The player God defends the hero's fame, reminding everyone of his legendary title as Master of the Zones, and calls Dentist a noob. He reflects that revealing the zone wouldn't be a problem for now, and finds that members' exaggerated defensiveness strange. The user surprisingly reveals he has never heard of safe zones, revealing that he is actually just a poor, real dentist from back home. The guy remembers there was a dentist's office right next to the bazaar market and concludes the poor man was dragged in for no reason. With this information, the MC deduces that the poor rookie dentist definitely landed in the friendly and sweet candy area. He lets out a sigh of relief, knowing the rookie is sheltered in an easy and peaceful starting zone. The hero thanks the group for their answers and says he'd like to ask one last, very important question to all of them. The guy openly asks if any other group member also has a legendary item made from meteorite fragments. The player God reveals he has rare meteorite earrings, while the user Home Protector says he has a special pistol. The player Sap Possible impressively states that the power source for his war submarine is made of meteorite. The guy begins to ponder what the true hidden connection between the beautiful Moonstone ring and the start of the apocalypse could be. He needs to confirm if the deceased soldier really possessed a healing power, or if this whole story hides something worse. He states he doesn't own any objects, and the MC is startled to realize that the hidden rules might be different. The hero understands that just touching or being close to space debris is enough to unlock the screen. The hero decides to ask a new and crucial question, wanting to know if any of them have encountered other real players yet. The members give varied survival answers, while the user codenamed God brags, saying everyone serves him there. The guy realizes that although there are other active players in certain areas, only one from each group managed to unlock the system. With this crucial information, the hero concludes there must be other hidden conditions for unlocking, besides just touch. The MC wonders why the mysterious Unicorn Zone is the only one that hasn't unlocked the chat system yet. He stretches out tiredly on the bed, knowing that with so many new things to investigate, he definitely won't be able to sleep today. The young man plans to gather his allies at the military base, making it easier to control the group of real-world players. He knows this mutual cooperation will be perfect to guarantee the absolute success of his survival strategies. A general from Daphne's allied faction seriously asks if they really managed to find the lost legitimate heir. Other older officers devoted to the commander defend Luna Moon's honor, calling the deceased soldier a great hero. The argument starts to heat up in the Grand Hall. With insults being directed at the late medic's conduct in the past, one of our officers heavily slams a closed fist on the wooden table, irritated by the accusations of cowardice. Military leader Anton orders everyone to shut their mouths, scolding those present for yelling in front of the great commander. The counselor makes a calm hand gesture and states that he is also curious to find out the whole truth about the young man. He wants to know if the commander truly considers the guy's late mother a cowardly army deserter or not. Commander Hayden faces the assembly with a serious look, knowing his answer will decide the base's political future. He calmly states that his own lost heir will be the one responsible for answering that complex question. The guards open the large hall door, announcing that the young heir is finally ready to be introduced to everyone. The MC enters the room in absolute silence. Immediately activating his special ability on those present, Hayden officially introduces him as his legitimate son Hayden, leaving the assembly generals surprised by the announcement. The MC faces the officers' suspicious glares, realizing the hostility there is much worse than he imagined. He walks firmly and elegantly through the hall, impressing everyone with his tremendous composure and calm demeanor as an heir. The guy understands he is facing the elite council of that base and that every person there holds great military power. He analyzes the internal political divisions, knowing half the council supports Daphne and the other half served with Luna Moon. The hero understands that if he accepts the lie about his mother's desertion, he will lose all political support from Hayden's important wing. On the other hand, if he declares she was a war hero, the other influential factions will refuse to follow him. The MC knows very well that the real debate of that council is not about his late mother, but rather about pure power. The guy boldly states that the only fact that truly matters here is that the powerful military commander is his own father. The rival faction's general gets completely enraged upon hearing that audacious answer from that 10-year-old child. He furiously stands up, yelling loudly about how a bastard of completely unknown origin dares speak to them that way. The man loses control and hatefully orders the armed hall guards to grab the MC right there on the spot. Before anyone can move, a gunshot rings out and the general falls injured, clutching his chest. Shocking. Everyone, Director Moorsolt appears with a smoking pistol in his hand and respectfully asks if the young master is all right. The MC just coldly observes the scene while the commander stares at him with a serious look of approval. The guy examines the stains on his gala clothes, calmly commenting that the beautiful uniform he received ended up getting dirty. The loyal director puts his firearm away, maintaining a firm and resolute expression after eliminating the rebel general. Because of that terrible armed incident, the official meeting of the base's generals ends up being wrapped up in a hurry. The commander silently observes the details of the hall, while the rebel's body is removed from there by the guards. Moorsolt is impressed to note that the young heir didn't show any reaction of fear facing that violent end. He knows very well the boy is extremely intelligent, but didn't expect him to show so much courage and boldness. The leader asks his personal assistant what he thought of the guy's behavior over those last few days of training. The director respectfully confesses that he knew he was special, but claims the young master exceeded all expectations. The scene shows a massive wallboard with various maps, notes, and military intelligence photos of the local faction. He praises the guy's ability to master military etiquette, memorize family history, and analyze strategies. The director surprisingly states that his focus and memorization skills are simply astounding for a 10-year-old age. However, the military assistant reveals with admiration that the detail that truly surprised him the most was his perfect marksmanship. The experienced shooter confesses he saw the test with his own eyes and still found the result unbelievable. The director states that the young master's posture, breathing, and composure were identical to those of a veteran elite sniper. The guy just smirks, asking if he shot right, and fakes innocence by saying it was his first time using weapons. Actually, his Korean veteran military stats and his magic shooter title guarantee that perfect aim. He knows that with the system's blue aim assist, anyone can hit a static target, but the director notices something more there. Mirso sincerely says the boy's talent with firearms can only be described as a natural, divine gift. He explains that perfect aim is crucial for defending the base, since the creatures only drop if you hit their core. The scene shows a terrifying giant mutant wolf with glowing blue eyes, roaring frighteningly in the middle of the blizzard. Mirsault respectfully declares that the young master Haydam is absolutely essential for winning the subjugation war. However, the director soon regrets talking about such complex and violent war matters with a 10-year-old child. The commander listens to everything carefully and only answers with a few words in silence, keeping his thoughtful expression. The experienced military leader turns his back and mentally agrees with his assistant's observations and conclusions. The man reflects emotionally that the guy truly resembles the beloved late Luna Moon in every aspect. The snow continues to fall softly over the central courtyard and the stone barracks of that area's great military base. In the fortress streets, some soldiers begin spreading rumors about the terrible elimination that took place in the meeting room. The guards talk in shock about how the director fired at a general and wonder if he won't face severe punishment. However, another soldier clarifies that the rebel was the one who disrespected the legitimate heir first, shifting the whole view of the case. The guard continues the rumor, stating that Haydam's reaction to all that violence was simply unbelievable. He surprisingly reveals that the boy witnessed a violent end and only worried about apologizing for getting his clothes dirty. Some accuse him of being a complete psychopath, while others mention that the boy plans to have lunch with the recruits every month. Mirso tells the young master that these peculiar rumors about his sanity are spreading fast across the base. The director respectfully calls him Master Haydam, while the young man listens calmly, watching the landscape out the window. The boy smiles slightly, commenting that hearing the gossip like that really makes him sound like a very dangerous psychopath. He jokes that the director pulling a gun and shooting out of nowhere in the meeting is definitely much weirder than him. The guy walks firmly across the office and decides to change the subject to ask his ally a new, important question. He openly asks about the real reason that led the director to shoot the rebel general at the previous meeting. The clever young man looks his companion straight in the eye and asks directly if the man didn't plan that elimination on purpose. Director Mirso maintains a firm posture facing that direct accusation, but a slight sweat on his face gives away his tension. The experienced soldier calmly adjusts his glasses and tries to hide his reaction, claiming he has no idea what he's talking about. The MC flashes a slight smirk, commenting very coldly that the explanation is actually quite simple. He explains that Commander Haydam himself definitely wanted to personally take down anyone who offended Luna Moon. However, being the supreme commander of that entire area, he could never easily pick a side in that argument. But with the surprise appearance of the supposed bastard son, the military leader finally got the perfect motive he needed. The commander's fury served as a clear rule, dictating that anyone who insulted his heir would pay dearly. The man proved through violent actions that he indeed wouldn't accept any kind of disrespect toward the guy newly arrived at the base. The MC deduces that the leader made a prior agreement with the director, authorizing the takedown of anyone who offended him. He adds that the commotion of the shooting perfectly served to drown out the initial gossip about his bastard status. The director says it's an excellent theory, but reminds him that he belongs to Daphne's rival faction and questions his trust. The hero laughing agrees, saying that since he's Luna Moon's legitimate son, he's definitely considered a major rival to them, but the guy remembers his secret promise to take the successor post and free the director's beloved once and for all. His entire political goal boils down to managing to inherit total control of the army at the right moment of that long game, and thereby gloriously securing the freedom and happiness the noble Daphne Goodman so deeply dreamed of in the Grand Mansion. The guy very coldly states that the only factor he truly trusts is the director's blind, eternal devotion to her. The experienced soldier is shocked and admits that the boy possesses absolutely fabulous political instincts for his age. He changes the subject, commenting on the monthly banquet for the orphans, and jokes when he sees the young master flustered by the compliment. The hero confirms he will host the party soon and is surprised to note Meursault's sudden interest in his plans. The MC notices the director is much more compliant and reveals he intends to personally cook the dishes for the banquet. The director praises the brilliant idea, knowing that tasty food is indeed the classic method to win over hearts. The hero knows that true leadership demands respect and that he needs to genuinely earn the loyalty of the other orphans. With this strategy in mind, the young master prepares to officially kick off his plan to win their loyalty. He remembers that the commander wanted to eliminate anyone who offended Luna Moon, and that he used the heir as an excuse. The loyal military assistant listens to the guy's explanations in absolute silence and gets ready to lend his support in whatever is needed. The director asks how he can help in the kitchen, but the MC surprises everyone by choosing the dangerous hunting route. The experienced soldier is left completely speechless upon hearing such a bold and dangerous answer coming from a small child. The MC just maintains a calm expression, showing a slight, confident smile at his companion's astonishment. He repeats his order firmly and warns with a focused look that their first step will be to initiate hunting activities. Hayden gets ready to start a dangerous hunting mission out in the snow. They advance through the frozen forest, while Meursault complains about the extreme danger of walking out there. The bespectacled companion questions if he really intends to leave the safe zone with just a gun in his hand. Hayden tells him to relax and says it's just a simple hunt, but the glasses-wearing friend is still very stressed. Meursault confesses he is just worried about his well-being, leaving the young man surprised by such affection. He explains that the commander would end anyone if his own heir suffered the slightest scratch on the hunt, even facing the danger warnings. The MC remains focused on pushing forward with his bold plan. Hayden explains he wants to hunt the ingredients for the banquet himself to show that everything is done with total dedication. The friend completely agrees with the young man's intention, but still shows apprehension about his lack of experience. The annoyed companion complains that he has never seen the guy shoot and fears taking all the blame if things go very wrong. The young man firmly states that he is the commander's son, and hunting monsters won't be a big deal for him. He says he's defeated monsters even without weapons, and sarcastically suggests his colleague hide behind him. Hayden knows hunting alone would be easier, but he brought his grumpy friend because he needs a witness for the future. Meursault suddenly spots a target in the snow, while the young master plans to use his testimony to prove his worth. The boy spots a cute rabbit with deer antlers, ideal to be the first catch of that simple hunt. To his bespectacled companion's surprise, the young master warns that this cute little bunny is not his real target. Without hesitation, Hayden cuts his own hand with a sharp blade, leaving his partner completely panicked. He asks for silence so as not to scare off the monsters as he walks, leaving a trail of red liquid on the fresh snow. The MC realizes his dangerous tactic worked and announces that the creature is finally approaching. A massive, heavy hoof appears crushing the soft snow, announcing the arrival of a gigantic beast nearby. The bespectacled companion screams in terror upon seeing a huge hippo pig violently emerge in the blizzard. Meursault desperately warns that this dangerous creature rarely appears near people, but the boy tells him to calm down. The guy knows that this beast usually only hunts smaller creatures and almost never attacks beings stronger than itself. The giant monster lets out a screeching, furious roar, scaring the small critters living in that forest. Meursault realizes it's a blood trap to bait the beast, but questions if a normal trap wouldn't be safer there. Hayden explains that the beast's sense of smell is refined, and that the scent of shooting the rabbit would serve to scare it away from the spot. He authoritatively orders his bespectacled friend to step back while he aims his assault rifle at the threat. The apocalypse shooter's powerful skill is activated by the system while the injured guy baits the wild beast. The enraged monster charges full force at the hero, who patiently waits for the exact moment to counterattack. A bright, gleaming crystal stands out in the middle of the creature's forehead, indicating the ideal weak point for the shot. The guy aims with absolute precision right at the beast's glowing core while getting ready to pull the trigger. A deafening gunshot echoes throughout the frozen forest, tearing through the air at incredible speed. The bespectacled partner watches the result of the shot with sweat on his face, totally shocked by the immense precision of the hit. With the threat totally neutralized, the young master lowers his rifle barrel and says the fight is finally over. The sun shines radiantly over the beautiful facade of the imposing military base mansion on a gorgeous, clear blue sky day. A group of young cadets in white uniforms stare at the table with amazed looks and jaws dropped in surprise. Delicious platters full of grilled pork and fresh lettuce leaves decorate the party's outdoor table. Hayden appears with a nice smile on his face, offering plates of grilled pork and telling everyone not to hold back. The boys start savoring the delicious meal, laughing and chatting happily around the large wooden tables. The young blonde in the blue apron sarcastically comments that the newcomers can't even taste the real food. The blonde keeps grilling the meat, while Hayden remarks in a friendly tone that his companion is still the same as always. A red-haired young man suddenly appears and does an extremely exaggerated bow, startling the blonde. The redhead loudly introduces himself as Taijong and excitedly asks if he can be the blonde warrior's junior. The blonde gets deeply annoyed by the shameless redhead's sudden audacity and starts yelling loudly at the venue. The MC remembers the redhead has served in the military and asks the blonde if he knows how to use real firearms, yet Taejong hypes his buddy up, calling the blonde a natural genius, and mentions he is a player from that world. The blonde boy gets furious at the redhead's carelessness and tells him to shut up so he doesn't expose their secret to the others. Hayden asks both friends to cool down, suggesting they start sharing survival tips from now on. The red-haired guy happily reveals he is working at the commander's mansion and that the local veterans are pretty nice. Suddenly, the MC seriously asks if his red-haired friend managed to overhear any secret information there. The redhead drops a shocking secret, saying that General Radu is actually having a secret affair. The blonde and the MC are left completely unimpressed by that silly gossip they just heard. Next, the redhead changes the subject and asks if they found out anything important about the extermination battles. The blonde warrior complains worriedly, saying he heard rumors that he might be dragged into the next fight. Hayden reflects that these clashes happen in the harsh winter and that they still have some time to prepare. The golden-haired friend asks what he found out, and the young hero decides to show them something surprising. He pulls out a beautiful necklace with a ring pendant and tells the two to touch the mysterious object immediately. The MC sees that the unlocking trick didn't work on them and keeps the pendant in his hand. Reveals he unlocked the system recently and deduces that most players need a specific item. The young man concludes that the game's hidden rule only allows one unlocked system for each existing zone. The warrior in the white uniform starts having a panic attack, not knowing what will happen to those without any items. The MC calmly explains that only the viewing, inventory, and chat functions are available there. He checks his virtual notification screen and notices that there are currently 8 people active in the public room. This confirms that there are other active players in various different zones surviving in that hostile world. The blonde guy makes a serious, thoughtful face while trying to process that shocking system revelation. He asks if the famous dopamine addict is in that group, while the MC wonders why he is the topic there. Hayden secretly thinks he will only reveal his identity after making the guy owe him a ton of major favors. The blonde crosses his arms suspiciously, recalling he was the first to warn him and that he shouldn't trust people so easily. The redhead cheers happily, deducing they are the only isekid survivors who landed in the Coca-Cola zone. While grilling the juicy, delicious meat, the blonde confirms that they indeed seem to be the only survivors from there, but the MC stays completely silent, knowing all of this is still just his own initial theory. The hero starts to consider the fantastic possibility that the legendary Luna Moon might have also been a real player. The golden-haired guy is absolutely stunned hearing this unbelievable theory about the young master's mother. Hayden says he isn't sure, but points out that her physical resemblance indicates she was Asian, just like all of them. The young man recalls the moment when the experienced, bespectacled ally commented on how much he looks like Luna Moon. The hero reveals in his thoughts that she was known throughout the base as the great hero of the subjugation war. The blonde points out, intrigued, that this legendary war hero title is an exclusive achievement for real players. Hayden makes a serious face and tells his companions that the most decisive and revealing clue about her is something else. The hero reveals that the legendary warrior possessed an incredible, mysterious healing ability, just like a player's. He flashes a defiant smile and asks if his companions aren't anxious for the brutal campaign that awaits them. The blonde guy yells in irritation, seeing the boy's sadistic smile. While his red-haired friend tries to hold him back to calm him down, Hayden fumbles with his blue apron and decides to pick up the mysterious diamond ring that once belonged to his mother again. He holds the small silver jewel, knowing that this mysterious accessory certainly hides deep secrets. In the original game, the jewel was common, but now the system reveals that the ring applies the title of Luna Moon's friend to the target. The hero recalls that the previous night, the jewel started to get strangely warm while he was with the commander. But as soon as the military leader left the room, the mysterious object cooled down, as if it were sad about the departure. He ponders that the title of Luna Moon's friend is an ability that exclusively affects NPC-type characters. Based on this rule, the young man deduces that the soul or the very essence of an NPC might be dormant inside that ring. The MC observes the horizon in silence, wondering who that enormous and deep melancholy belonged to. While the base's gears operate at full speed, the young man remains immersed in his complex game thoughts. The blonde guy fears that the old strategies will fail, but Hayden guarantees that the plans work and that whoever fails will not make it. He questions if only her settings have changed, leaving the redhead quite confused with all that discussion. Hayden deduces that if she really was a player, someone was transported to that hostile world before all of them. The young warrior holds his head, tormented by the weight of the terrible difficulties and mysteries of that new campaign. He yells in despair, saying his head is going to explode, and suggests focusing only on stopping the terrible final apocalypse. The MC explains that their immediate goal now is to secure their participation in the fierce subjugation war. The blonde guy agrees and excitedly points out that the simple fact of surviving that first battle already guarantees a valuable title. The redhead asks to participate, but Hayden decides to keep him safe in the rear to avoid putting his life at risk. He reflects that if something goes wrong with the main group, it is essential to have at least one free player to solve everything. The hero displays a slight smirk in silence, showing that he has absolutely zero intention of being defeated so easily. The friends question if he brought them to the room just to show off, but the young man immediately denies it. The young master firmly holds a silver fork from the drawer while making a metallic noise on the table. A beautiful tray full of cookies of various shapes and delicious sweets is placed on the wooden table. The two companions face the situation with enormous suspicion, not understanding the reason for so much silverware there. Hayden announces that starting today, all of them will train the act of eating, leaving his friends very confused. The young man explains that focusing on the act of chewing accelerates healing, but the blonde guy questions why not use their free hands. Without warning, a violent slicing sound echoes through the room, leaving the golden-haired friend terrified. The hero pierces his own hand with the fork, coldly saying that they needed a real wound for the test. The boys are shocked by that bizarre attitude and conclude that the young master is indeed a complete sociopath. Hayden calmly chews a sweet to demonstrate how total focus on eating activates the regeneration process. A magical, bluish light appears around his injured hand, accelerating the healing of his wound in an impressive way. The young man plans to use the free time before combat to exhaustively train the basic recovery skill. The hero puts on a bizarre expression and orders his friend to pierce him, officially starting that insane training. The blonde friend steps back terrified, claiming he has already mastered the healing process and wants to stay out of that madness. He reaches out toward the sweet tray to prove that his technique works in a very different way. To everyone's surprise, the blonde guy manages to absorb the cookie's energy without even needing to put it in his mouth. The redhead praises his brother's incredible talent and curiously asks how he managed to master such an advanced technique. The boy shares that he was always very sick in the past and spent most of his days hooked up to an IV. He remembers that he merely replicated that old feeling of receiving nutrients through his arm, and it ended up working out perfectly. He boasts, saying it is much more efficient since he can heal severe injuries just by touching the food. The MC evaluates the skill seriously and praises the young man in the white uniform, leaving the brothers quite surprised. Hayden plans to make his friend heal the entire group by personally feeding them in case everyone gets heavily injured in the war. The golden-haired boy starts to tremble with dread upon realizing he fell into a terrible trap set by the young master. The hero declares with a smirk that, starting today, the blonde guy will be officially appointed as the team's healer. The dark, starry night silently falls over the large glass window of the luxurious room in the military mansion. A few broken cookies remain on the tray, indicating that today's regeneration training was highly productive. The hero reflects on his friend's hidden abilities until a system notification sound echoes through the dark room. A series of friend requests from several known players pops up, flashing on his system's blue screen. He decides to accept the desperate home protector's request first, so he can start a private chat with the guy. The connection is established immediately, and the player jokingly complains about the delay in accepting. Hayden replies coldly, demanding that he be quick, and the player confesses he didn't mean to cause all that fuss. The caller surprises the MC by directly asking if he plans to visit the Unicorn Zone anytime soon. Suddenly, an item trade screen appears with an offer of 12 cigarettes sent by the survivor from the other zone. The young man is amazed to discover that the friendship system allows for secure item trades between regions. The player admits he just wants to secure protection and offers the items for free to be taken along in the future. The MC understands that making external alliances is a crucial strategic step to ensure victory in the game. He accepts the proposal, saying he will think about it, and smiles, planning to get the most out of that transaction. The young man observes his floating inventory screen in the middle of the dark room, analyzing the new possibilities. He prepares to go to sleep when a new, urgent message flashes on the screen, demanding his immediate attention. The hero is completely paralyzed with surprise upon noticing that the new friend request came from his biggest rival. He accepts the request and enters the private room with the enemy, who ironically asks if he finally wants to talk. The furious opponent recalls his deep grudge and deeply regrets not taking the hero out before his fall. In real life, the man used to type furiously on his illuminated keyboard while planning his strategies. He used to smoke thoughtfully in his dark office before choosing the nickname he would use to enter that universe. One of his companions suggested using a popular internet slang and proposed the name T-Bastard for the character. The blue-haired man accepted the suggestion right away, officially adopting the feared codename on the game server. He shares that after retiring from his old underworld organization, he decided to start playing purely on a recommendation. Unlike his boring life, the game felt incredibly real until the terrible secondary apocalypse began. The man confesses he was furious at first with the enormous difficulty because his own real life never had easy routes. He lets out a harsh curse of anger upon seeing the dreaded red game over screen flash before his tired eyes. The young man's pride spoke louder, and he decided to keep playing that challenging campaign anyway. He overcame the initial difficulties and finally achieved victory in the game's first major stage. The warrior cleared several low-level areas with ease and started to really have fun with the game. But the real problems began in the next phase, where artificial intelligences copied the player's tactics. He realized that his biggest rival's artificial intelligence absolutely dominated the high-level areas. The guy was totally defeated by the rival's artificial intelligence and swore payback against that opponent. The warrior noticed that everyone was just copying his rival's moves and desired to surpass him no matter what, determined to win. He found a complete guide to the dreaded knife zone posted by the opponent on the game's message board. He was quite shocked to see that this genius guy successfully cleared such a difficult stage, but he knew he couldn't waste time admiring his rival and needed to move faster than anyone else. He planned to use the artificial intelligence tactics against the opponent to get his much-desired rematch right there. With that goal in mind, he swallowed his pride and followed the adversary's guide advice in detail at dawn. However, upon managing to unlock the new phase, he realized the creator of the tactics had vanished from the entire internet. The only clue left behind by the mysterious player was the physical address of a regular convenience store. The young man concluded that all the players who visited the indicated location ended up disappearing without a trace. Determined to investigate the mystery up close, the young man decided to personally enter the designated establishment. He soon spotted the redhead checking out the products on the counter and deduced he was also a player from that universe. He asked if the guy was the famous retired national athlete and wanted to know if he was a survivor from there. The redhead confirmed his bizarre player nickname, and the warrior realized he was just another devoted fan of his rival. He spotted a small box cutter on the counter and noticed something very strange was happening in the store. A mysterious employee wearing a blue cap and a black mask suddenly appeared behind the convenience store counter. The MC started talking to the clerk while analyzing the details of the silent environment. The warrior sensed a very dangerous intent coming from the employee and felt he was walking into a trap. The clerk stared at him in a creepy way, and the young man noticed that the mysterious man was hiding something dark there. He tried to step back quickly, but realized his feet weren't obeying and that he was completely paralyzed on the floor. The young man was startled to see a bluish teleportation glow appear around him, consuming his entire body. That terrifying and inexplicable abduction in the middle of the store was the last real memory he kept of the human world. Upon opening his eyes again, the man realized in shock that he was trapped in the fragile body of a 10-year-old boy. He dropped right into the dangerous knife zone, surrounded by cruel outlaws and unstable individuals who wanted a piece of him. In the midst of the torment from those unhinged criminals, the young man remembered the strategies posted by his rival on the game's board. Using the valuable tips on playing dead, he managed to steal the meteorite dagger and flee the scene in a rush. However, the deep and severe injuries he sustained during the escape left the child's body on the brink of an imminent end. When he finally unlocked the zone, he noted in frustration that his clever opponent had already vanished from the internet. He sent a message warning that he couldn't take him out and that he refused to consume unthinkable things to survive there. The weakened warrior waited for a reply in the chat and angrily complained about his clever opponent's coldness. The young man realized he was about to pass away until a new system notification sound popped up before him. An item trade offer sending 15 life-restoring cookies was proposed by the mysterious opponent. He complained about the mockery, but deep down was thankful for the unexpected help, swearing he would eliminate him in the game no matter what. The rival warned that even the hero wouldn't be able to clear out all the inhabitants of that zone before time ran out. Hayden laughs, explaining that the guide was written just to warn players about the dangers of that region. He jokes, commenting that even though his rival acted like he didn't care, he ended up reading all of his tip content. The opponent agrees, quite annoyed, saying that the legendary dopamine addict is indeed the worst type of player around there. Hayden smirks, satisfied to see that his opponent still has plenty of energy to stay mad at him. He hopes his rival survives regardless, as he plans to snatch his powerful weapon at the right moment. Under the faint glow of the full moon, the tranquil and beautiful zone of love stretches silently across the Rocky Mountains. A mysterious shaman with long black hair walks on the water, surrounded by red-hooded devotees in the forest. One of the robed followers worriedly asks what the deities have revealed about the dangers of that perilous stage. The beautiful leader calmly replies that the deity sent a clear warning revelation, but the young man chose to ignore it. The young shaman, codenamed God, reveals to her faithful that the legendary dopamine addict will not help them in the battle. She notices with intrigue that the guy hasn't accepted her friend request yet and wonders if he already got what he wanted. The beautiful shaman smiles mysteriously, affirming to herself that the feeling of rivalry with the opponent is mutual. She reflects that if her rival were in the main base of the unicorn area, none of them would have any chance of victory. But since he landed in the Coca-Cola zone, the villainess celebrates being in the love area, where she can use her maximum power. She shares that she used to pretend to be a shaman in the real world and perfectly knows how to manipulate people's minds and hearts. She reveals in her dark thoughts that the fundamental requirement to clear that stage is love. The young woman got the meteorite items and tricked the players by pretending to receive divine revelations to win their affection. The cult leader rebukes her followers' doubts, assuring them that they have her to hear the true divine will. She orders them to spread the rumor that a divine messenger will appear in 10 years to harshly punish the non-believers there. The villainess plans to spread chaos, knowing that players holding rare meteorite items will be in even greater danger. She preaches that deities send the hardest tests to their favorites and awaits the start of the terrible second apocalypse. She smiles sadistically, silently thinking that Master Dopamine Addict's victory won't be easy at all this time. The young redhead hurries across the military base's stone courtyard under the MC's direct training orders. Hayden observes the redhead's great physical agility and curiously asks if he was ever an athlete in the real world. The hero praises his friend's performance, who returns the compliment, humbly stating that the young master is far more incredible. Hayden questions if he practiced sports shooting before reincarnating, but the redhead reveals he was just unemployed. The redhead praises his fellow soldier's great aim and excitedly claims he is destined for success at the base. To punish that exaggerated flattery, the MC coldly orders him to run 20 more full laps around the field. Hayden reflects that the system's special titles are only good for reputation and don't improve actual physical strength there. He knows that if he doesn't train exhaustively, he will remain trapped in the fragile and defenseless body of a 10-year-old child. He analyzes his extensive list of special titles, confirming that none of them grant physical status bonuses there. The young master begins to question how he managed to pull off that perfect shot against the beast in the middle of the forest. He remembers that the divine accuracy came from the magical title obtained after hitting monsters' weak spots 10 times in a row. With this powerful skill active on his firearm, the hero knows he can accurately hit any target. However, he recalls the terrible limit imposed by the system, which allows using this perfect aim for only 6 shots. The 7th shot carries a terrible hidden curse that forces the projectile to hit the person most precious to the shooter. The boy takes a pause in absolute silence to make an exact count of how many shots he has already fired in the match. He recalls that he spent 4 shots in the forest and worriedly realizes he has only 2 safe shots left. If he fires the 7th shot, the bullet will hit Commander Hayden since he has the highest affection level with the hero. The boy mentally blames his glasses-wearing ally for making him waste practice shots against the base's static targets. Suddenly, the young redhead interrupts his deep thoughts, curiously asking what he is thinking about so much. The hero changes the subject, lying that he was paying attention to the conversation, but the redhead sees through the disguise immediately. The athlete suggests using shorter, more intense interval training, and the MC praises his professional reasoning. The redhead mentions he'd like to stick to a strict diet, but admits that pulling that off there is an almost impossible task. The red-haired boy has a sudden light bulb moment and catches Hayden's attention, who curiously asks what happened. The hero remembers that besides training hard, there is another very effective way to recover health points in the real game. His glasses-wearing ally in his office finds the young master's sudden obsession with the base's military ration stock. Strange, Hayden laughingly explains that since they are locked up under disciplinary custody, there is nothing better to do than research. The young man discovered that beef jerky and canned, compacted foods offer a higher healing effect than regular sweets. He says nothing beats military rations and wants to know if his bespectacled colleague has any leftovers, even if they're spoiled. The young man curiously explains that the stones weren't absorbed and that he wants to test the effects of expired food. The ally closes the large logbook in absolute silence to seriously evaluate such an unusual request. The imposing wooden office door opens with a creak, revealing the entrance of yet another ally of the MC. The bespectacled friend invites the young master to visit the base's research lab, where he needs to check something too. The MC is quite intrigued by that surprise invitation and wonders what his ally wants to investigate there. They set off toward the base's official security lab, which develops uniforms and food for the entire army. The researcher presents the dried meat made from monsters and invites the hero to try the new food for the test. Hayden analyzes the food on the metal tray, silently commenting that the piece looks much bigger than he expected. Without hesitation, the young hero takes a bite of the jerky under the attentive and curious gaze of his research companion. The hero makes a face of disgust, mentally complaining that the meat tastes terribly like an old, dirty military boot. His bespectacled colleague suspiciously asks if he's eaten military boots in the past, but the hero denies it, saying it was just a joke. The door opens with a slight creak, and the staff astonishedly announce the young master's unexpected visit there. The startled director of the research institute asks if the boy really came from so far, just to see the rations. The old man cries tears of joy upon seeing someone who finally values supplies in the post-apocalypse to avoid starvation. He throws the reports in the air, complaining about the research delays. While the boys think he's quite a dramatic old man, Hayden humbly bends down to pick up the papers from the floor and fully agrees with the director's reasoning. He smiles, saying he hates seeing people go hungry and promises total financial support for the scientist's projects. The scientist is touched upon noticing the real, deep, charitable intentions of that 10-year-old child in the fortress. The MC asks him to create smaller, lighter military rations to feed the soldiers in the upcoming war. The old man explains that the lab has high dehydration technology, but no one had ever asked for improvements before. The director asks for a vote of confidence and firmly guarantees that he will proudly accept that noble scientific challenge. The hero is very pleased with the answer and encourages the scientist to create the ultimate military ration for the army. They respectfully say their goodbyes and leave the research building, walking back under the faint evening light at the base. The bespectacled companion asks in a suspicious tone what the real, hidden goal behind the rations project is. He wants to know if the young master used the 2 boys in his room just to test the recruit's health conditions. The MC realizes that his bespectacled partner pretended not to care, but was actually monitoring him with secret spies. The bespectacled warrior confesses that he used to consider everyone an idiot, with the exception of Hayden and Daphne, but he admiringly admits that the 10-year-old boy makes him feel like he will become his true superior in the future. The MC stares at his ally with a serious, focused look, showing no reaction to the sincere compliment. He finds that statement very mature, coming from an obsessive fan of Daphne, and ironically asks what he said. Suddenly, an on-duty guard blocks their path and announces he will conduct a mandatory routine inspection on the spot. The soldier explains that everyone must go through a security search when leaving the building to prevent the theft of materials. He asks the boy to take a step forward and respectfully warns that he will conduct a quick body search on his clothes. The MC immediately recognizes the guard's sad face as the son of the fallen rebel general from the meeting. He recalls the tense moment of the shootout where the injured general cried in pain, holding the portrait of his beloved heir. The loyal, bespectacled ally apologizes for the loss of his father, but the soldier says it's all right and concludes the routine search. Bierso calmly explains that the young guard is the executed traitor's son and says he did that to soothe his heart. He shares that the rebel general abandoned his newborn son in the past, yet the young man still shed tears over his passing. The bespectacled guy sighs in relief to see that the situation with the traitor's family was handled without major issues. The ally reveals he had secret orders from Hayden to take out the soldier if he showed any sign of revenge. The MC notices that since the shootout at the meeting, the other soldiers avoid him and pretend not to see him in the base's hallways. The young man understands he needs to quickly find out what the generals think of him so he can separate allies from enemies. He knows that if the elite officers keep hiding their real opinions, he will have to take more drastic measures. The hero flashes a slight smirk in silence, secretly planning to pay a surprise visit to the opponents. In the military elite's luxurious conference room, one of the officers asks if everyone has already seen the monster brought by the boy. Another general confirms he saw the defeated beast and is amazed by the combat skills of that small child. They wonder if Commander Hayden ordered that dangerous hunt just to make the young master stand out at the base. A bearded officer disagrees and seriously states that the boy only pretends to be 10 years old, but acts like an astute adult. The experienced military man recalls that the child witnessed a violent demise right before his eyes and didn't even blink in fear. Leader Anton asserts that the real issue there is that the young heir represents a major political threat to Daphne. He asks those present if the noble lady has spoken about the matter, but they reveal she is holding back for now. The officer taps his finger on the table thoughtfully, deducing that she is just planning the best way to deal with the threat. The generals know the boy is no ordinary kid, and that he is gathering allies among the officers and children of the fortress. One of the opposition leaders questions if all those moves by the heir are just to earn the base's respect. But he soon suspiciously concludes that the real goals of that cunning child are certainly much bigger. Suddenly, the large wooden door of the meeting room slams open, interrupting the secret discussion. The generals of Hayden's allied faction confidently enter the room and jokingly ask if they started without them. The allied leader walks in laughing and asks why everyone suddenly got so quiet with his group's surprise arrival. The uniformed boss tries to hide the tension, claiming they were just praising the youngsters' impressive hunting techniques. The allied general cheerfully agrees and settles into the luxurious wooden chair to officially begin the proceedings. The man excitedly reveals he wants to fight by his side in the next extermination battle, making the rivals in the room quite tense. The gray-bearded officer smiles upon realizing his interlocutor's bold plans. He is outraged by the idea of sending a child into a terrible extermination battle. The generals start stomping their feet and fiercely arguing about the base's defense strategies. Suddenly, a young cadet bursts into the room, screaming in despair that something very bad has happened. The messenger reveals that young Hayden invaded Daphne's residence by scaling the compound's walls. The MC reveals that he planned the invasion to manage to bring the two rival factions together all at once. The answer was simple and consisted of messing with precisely the most important person in the fortress. He pops up by surprise on top of the wall, startling the maid, who lets out a high-pitched scream of terror. Since all his polite requests were rejected, the boy decided to use a more daring approach. He was completely determined to get answers, even if he had to cause a massive scandal. Firm, elegant footsteps echo down the staircase, announcing the arrival of the owner of that luxurious mansion. The beautiful white-haired lady walks down the stairs, asking if he has a very urgent message. The boy's system reveals that she is a player from another version and that she has a bad ending route. The MC is surprised to discover she is not an ordinary character, but actually another player. He tries to understand the meaning of that strange route he had never seen in his normal playthroughs. The hero realizes she can't see his data and deduces she came from an earlier version of the game. She asks why he is staring so much, and the boy apologizes very quickly. The boy says he inherited the habit of staring from his late mother, leaving the woman utterly shocked. He apologizes for the intrusion and says he needs to deliver his mother's last words in a private conversation. The maids are outraged by the boy's petulance and demand that he leave immediately. But the noble woman orders everyone to leave so she can speak with the child in private. The two are finally left alone in the mansion's massive, luxurious hall to talk in secret. Hot tea is served while the MC prepares to extract as many secrets from her as possible. The woman pours the drink and curiously asks about the secret message her late friend left for her. The hero notices she doesn't show any hostility, even though she is hated by all of his allies. Observing the nervous movements of her hands, the young man notices she seems to carry a heavy burden of guilt. He knows that Luna Moon's tragic end left deep, hard to overcome scars on the beautiful lady. The MC decides to invent a lie, saying his mother left a special message of reconciliation. He claims his mother forgave her, hoping to extract even more advantages with this fake gossip. The woman starts trembling and crying, despairingly saying her friend would never forgive her so easily. She laments taking the boy's loved one away, and the MC is intrigued to hear her talk about a rote. The system screens reveal that she indeed belongs to a totally different version of that universe. The boy decides to dig deeper and says his mother left a secret phrase in case she didn't believe him. He leans in seriously, promising she will tell the whole truth after hearing the magic word. The MC reveals her embarrassing nickname, leaving the woman red with shame and shock. She hides her flushed face and promises to tell everything, while the boy makes fun of the rival's bizarre name. The woman takes a deep breath over her hot tea, not really knowing where to start that revelation. She reveals the shocking secret that she and Luna Moon came from another world and fell inside a game. The hero sips his tea, pretending to suspect everything, while secretly knowing she is telling the absolute truth. The young man becomes extremely curious to find out exactly which version of the survival game she used to play. He remembers the franchise is very old and features both classic pixel games and modern versions. The MC ponders that the version he himself cleared was the latest one released on the market. He worriedly deduces that other players from older versions might have also been dragged into that universe. The young master asks directly what the game's title was, and the woman hesitates, feeling quite embarrassed. He is very confused to see her so ashamed to utter the simple name of a video game. The boy acts dramatic, pretending to be hurt, to force the woman to finally spill the big hidden secret. She finally begins to speak shyly, and the young man tries to understand the meaning of that word. The beautiful lady blushingly confesses she played a romance and dating simulation game aimed at middle-aged people. The MC is completely paralyzed in shock upon hearing about that bizarre video game genre. Meanwhile, the bespectacled officer is desperate to find out that the boy invaded the rival's mansion. The beautiful lady looks at the boy and promises to explain everything about that mysterious game as simply as possible. She somewhat ashamedly reveals she used to play a dating simulator with older men in the real world. She explains the game's plot featured handsome middle-aged men in a very bizarre post-apocalyptic military setting. The woman remembers that in her old life, she played every day because she had fallen in love with a specific character. But she laments that she could never be with him because that man was just an unromanceable extra. She recalls the moment in the game when a shy, bespectacled guy offered her a clean handkerchief, showing affection. The young woman gently asked him to accept the handkerchief while the two locked eyes in a romantic moment. The shy, bespectacled guy worriedly confessed he was afraid of ending up dirtying the lovely handkerchief with his soiled hands, but she insisted with rosy cheeks that he keep the gift, demonstrating all the affection she felt for him. Hearing all this revelation, the young MC starts putting the pieces together and understanding her real motives. The beautiful white-haired woman sadly confirms that old love story was indeed true. She confesses with a beautiful smile that her absolute favorite character in that entire campaign was Morso. The hero asks if the only way she could beat the campaign and survive was by agreeing to marry the military commander. She closes her eyes very sadly and confirms she had no other choice to manage to save her own life in the game. The system gave her a mandatory marriage quest, under the terrible threat of elimination if she failed within 1 year. Back then, the only available marriage targets in the fortress were the commander and young Hayden. Since she ended up reincarnating exactly into the body of the military leader's own daughter, her options were quite limited. The beautiful woman explains that faced with such a bizarre situation, she was forced to choose the young master to marry. The MC listens to everything in silence and finally grasps the hidden secrets behind that arranged marriage. She reincarnated through a different game, but the rules and characters of that world were almost identical to his game. The hero realizes that even though he thought he was trapped in a game, the real world might have served as the foundation for creating the games. He considers the possibility that someone developed the video games entirely based on this world's reality. Even if it's just a theory, he is absolutely certain that the mysterious entity that dragged them there is very cruel. The young man concludes that the creator of all this is a complete sadistic psychopath who loves seeing innocent people suffer. He displays a vengeful smile, silently swearing he will make the culprit pay dearly when he finally finds them. The hero chuckles, thinking about how her allied generals are going to panic and freak out over the mess he just created. He remembers the commander's solemn promise to reveal the whole truth about the past when the right time came. The young man knows he needs to tread carefully to keep up the charade of being the legendary warrior's true heir. He decides to push himself to the limit to gain absolute control of that entire major military region in the future. Suddenly, the bespectacled ally bursts into the massive hall, screaming the young master's name in a completely scandalous manner. The boy looks back with a look of pure boredom, not understanding the reason for so much despair from that annoying guy. The assistant asks if he is that charming man, and the little hero is quite confused by that silly question. At that moment, the military commander furiously appears with his guards, demanding to know what they think they are doing. The leader angrily yells, asking why they invaded Daphne's chambers and kicked all the servants out of there. The bearded officer demands an explanation for such immense disrespect, while the boy notices how furious the man is. The MC stays calm and shows a slight smirk before answering his father's tough question. He lies, saying he promised on his mother's behalf to help the two get an amicable divorce as soon as possible. All the officers present at the hall's entrance are completely shocked and speechless at that absurd gossip. The bespectacled ally paces hurriedly and complains with deep concern, fearing the commander's terrible fury over the lie. However, the leader himself pops up right behind them and threateningly asks if there is something he shouldn't know. The assistant stammers in terror, but the brave boy faces his superior and assures him he only talked to the beautiful lady. The youngster explains he didn't make any mistake and claims the mansion's owner herself forgave him for showing up unannounced. The imposing commander coldly counters, saying her authorization doesn't lessen the severity of the little one's actions. The leader holds out his hand and warns with utmost authority that absolutely everything in that territory requires his consent. He clenches his fist tightly and firmly declares that acting without his approval is a very serious issue that leads to punishment. The bespectacled young man swallows hard, sweating from pure dread at the extreme tension that formed between father and son there. The MC stares at the man in the white uniform thoughtfully while quickly processing the real meaning of that warning. He gives an ironic bow, accepting the rule, and asks if he can go back to his room now after the serious talk. The little guy says goodbye by calling the general father, leaving the imposing and feared commander completely paralyzed with surprise. The military leader looks away slightly embarrassed and gives the young heir permission to leave the place in peace. The sun slowly begins to set, painting the sky orange over the beautiful snow-covered houses of the fortress. The bespectacled assistant walks beside the young master, complaining about the huge scare he got from the invasion. The little hero cuts off the guy's lectures, claiming he has bombshell news about Lady Daphne. The boy lets out a sarcastic smile and straightforwardly reveals that the noble lady wants to divorce the leader. The assistant adjusts his glasses, completely paralyzed with surprise, while the boy says he offered help with the separation. The young master keeps walking calmly and warns that there is yet another shocking revelation about the case. He ironically shares that the beautiful white-haired woman is now looking for a new marriage partner. The bespectacled assistant turns red with embarrassment, imagining she might be interested precisely in him as a candidate. The young man knows that although the two won't confess their true feelings, they still care deeply for each other. Uniting the two would be a very simple task for the hero, but he is interrupted by the assistant, who shyly calls out to him. The assistant embarrassedly asks what he needs to do to become one of her eligible marriage candidates. The boy gives a look of pure dismay upon realizing his bespectacled ally is indeed a hopeless romantic. The hero demands the guy treat him extremely well from now on if he wants his help in winning his beloved's heart. Little by little, the malicious comments about the young master's invasion of Daphne's mansion start to fade from the entire base. The snow piled up on the mountains begins to melt quickly, announcing the imminent start of the subjugation war. The military lab becomes extremely busy, with scientists and soldiers prepping combat supplies. The MC visits the commander in his office, planning to secure his own participation in the new battle. However, the boy is caught off guard by a direct order from the military leader and widens his eyes, completely confused. The man in dark glasses cleans his firearm and authoritatively states he won't allow the boy to go out hunting. The little hero gets very angry and wonders what is going on for his father to adopt that protective stance. He planned to train his red-haired ally and go on a few hunts in the forest to better prepare before the real battle. The commander warns that the starving beasts are very dangerous in winter and strictly forbids the boy from leaving. The youngster asks how he can level up without fighting, but the leader finds it weird for a child to talk about a subjugation war. He announces the boy will go to the military academy, and the hero panics, remembering the course lasts 6 long years. The leader fiddles with his pistol, complaining that his son made major decisions without consulting him beforehand about the plans. The boy reveals that Daphne told him everything about the conversation they had regarding Lunamoon's mysterious past. The general seriously asks if his son heard that his late mother was actually a player from that universe. The boy confirms it and silently realizes that the commander already knew the whole truth about his mother's origins. The general fondly recalls that his beloved Lunamoon always said absurd things about coming from a distant planet. He confesses that at the time, he couldn't easily believe the fantastic stories the young woman used to tell. The warrior mourns, holding his head, and cries, saying he would have listened more closely if he knew he was going to lose her. The MC observes his adoptive father's great pain in silence, understanding the deep suffering he carries. The commander finally decides to reveal the real reason he agreed to marry Daphne instead of his true love. He shares that Lunamoon herself demanded the marriage before vanishing. As soon as she found out she was pregnant with his child, she left only a letter asking him to take command, and the general says he is very grateful to have found the boy. He reiterates that his son will not participate in the battle, and the hero mentally complains about how his dad is an overprotective parent. With all this revelation, the boy discovers that the noble Daphne never kicked his mother out and that it was all Lunamoon's plan. The hero knows the second apocalypse will start in 10 years, and he cannot waste 6 precious years at the academy. He wants to tell the truth about the terrible end of the world, but fears his father will treat him like a complete lunatic there. Since the leader cares so much about his son's well-being, the boy knows he can't simply reveal he is a player. He tries to find a clever way to warn the general about the future catastrophe without exposing his real identity. The commander asks the boy to leave the office if he has already finished saying everything he needed to say, but the man remembers the past agreement where he promised to answer any question if his son was also honest. The boy asks if his father isn't curious to know why he wasn't surprised to discover his mother's identity. Without hesitating, the young hero reveals the shocking secret that he is actually a regressor who came back from the chaotic future. The commander is in absolute shock at the unbelievable revelation of having a regressor son from a future timeline. The boy stares at his superior firmly, waiting for the reaction of the man silently processing that bizarre truth. He knows the experienced military leader could never simply ignore such a serious warning coming from his own son. Since the commander has already lost his great love once in the past, he will do anything to prevent another tragedy in the family. The man in the white uniform walks slowly toward the boy and warns in a serious tone that he will ask only a single question. The commander asks the boy the real reason he only revealed his regressor identity now. The young master seriously explains that he needed to tell the truth because they don't have much time left anymore. He knows his adoptive father won't ignore the warning that a terrible new apocalypse will happen in 10 years. Suddenly, the large wooden door of the luxurious office opens, revealing the arrival of a visitor. The bespectacled assistant enters the room respectfully and calls the commander to report in. The young man with glasses salutes his superior and announces that his disciplinary confinement period is finally over. The leader welcomes him back but suspiciously questions his motives for visiting the secret labs so much. Ignoring the suspicion, the bespectacled young man says he has a very important question to ask the commander. He asks if the rumors about young Hayden participating in the Academy's elite training are real. The commander confirms the information, and the bespectacled assistant worriedly asks if he doesn't fear for his safety. He explains that even though the little master is very talented, he is still too young to face cadets. He warns that the opponents are experienced, and the boy could suffer severe injuries if he lowers his guard. The assistant reveals that the other general's reaction regarding his participation in the training is quite negative. The leader looks at his subordinate and reminds him that they have known each other long enough to trust one another. The general reflects that in all his years of wars and enemies, he learned to trust only his gut. He explains to the bespectacled guy that military instinct is the only thing capable of saving or ending lives. The commander silently recalls the exact moment he heard the grand revelation about the future from the boy's mouth. He remembers the scene where the child stared at him seriously and prophesied that a new apocalypse would come in 10 years. At that moment, the experienced military leader was completely stunned by the terrible revelation made by his son. The boy knew the story was hard to swallow, but kept his firm stance in front of his scared father. He guaranteed that the memories of the terrible tragedies he experienced in the future remained very vivid in his mind. The little guy explained he woke up in the body of his 10-year-old self, right after suffering a terrible and inevitable end. He firmly stated he would do anything to stop the apocalypse this time, leaving the general quite surprised. The young master asked if his dad never found it weird that he was so mature and knew so many military tactics. He explained he couldn't predict the exact future because simply going back in time had already altered the real events. Therefore, instead of uncertain prophecies, the boy promised to present concrete proof of his real skills. He asked the commander for permission to participate in the Academy's secret human combat simulation. The leader was very surprised to hear that audacious test request coming from such a small child. The imposing facade of the zone's prestigious military academy stands out under the gray evening clouds. To the public, the institution's curriculum focuses only on theory and combat tactics to face monsters. However, a confidential document reveals that there is another dangerous secret training program there. It is a real combat simulation that essentially serves to train soldiers to fight against humans. The test has an extreme difficulty level, with a preparation level as rigorous as a real war. The main goal of this secret military drill is to prepare cadets for the brutal battles against other zones. The commander found it odd that his son knew this secret, since only a few elite officers were aware of it. The boy answered firmly, saying he had already successfully graduated from that very academy in the future. The young hero promised to prove his worth through practical results, and the commander decided to believe him. The little master bowed, guaranteeing he would pass the training with top honors if given the vote of confidence. The leader looked at the training plan and made the definitive decision to support his son's challenging choice. The commander asks the bespectacled assistant if he thinks his decision was motivated by personal feelings. He honestly admits that there is indeed a personal affection because he is his heir with the late Luna Moon. The general looks out the window and comments he feels the standard defenses won't be able to hold back the danger anymore. He asks his ally to trust his instinct once again, while the young man with glasses listens to everything closely. The commander gazes at the beautiful military academy, silently hoping the boy becomes the great hope of that place. Inside the academy superintendent's main office, a young cadet in a gray uniform waits standing up. The old director in a black uniform and white sideburns stares at him seriously, showing some suspicion toward him. The MC lets out an ironic comment in his thoughts upon sensing the tense atmosphere that filled the room. The cadet in the gray uniform complains, harshly saying they cannot allow outsiders in that training. The arrogant young man is Platon, General Anton's talented son, who is about to graduate at the top of his class. Even though his father leads a rival faction, young Platon is very humble and respected by all the cadets at the base. The newcomer firmly insists that the director reconsider the decision to let an intruder train there. The cadet warns they can't let a child participate, and the hero notes he is way too politically correct. The director tries to calm the student, reminding him that the base commander himself personally approved that special test. The young master in the gray uniform authoritatively interrupts the director, showing he won't accept silly excuses there. The boy claims the director's proposal is humiliating for the heir and demands his honor be preserved there. To everyone's surprise, the little hero agrees with the young man and warns he doesn't want any special treatment either. He thanks the director for his consideration, but refuses any kind of privilege, making the old man look quite awkward. The boy proudly declares he came to the academy solely to test the real skills of the best cadets there. Hearing the child's bold words, the proud young man in the gray uniform concludes he is indeed quite unusual. He warns that the test simulates a very violent real battle, but the little hero replies he doesn't care about that. The guy praises the boy's willingness to learn, and the MC is quite confused by that sudden compliment. The cadet proposes the director put him on the young master's team to balance the power level of the two forces. He claims that this way, the little one can observe and learn without risking suffering any serious injury. But the MC turns down the invite on the spot very quickly, leaving the two officers in utter shock. The guy tries to convince him, saying teamwork is vital, but the little hero points out they didn't understand him. The boy reveals he doesn't want to be on the same team, because then he wouldn't be able to prove he's much better than his rival. He steps up to his opponent and warns with a cold look that he came there only to humiliate all the local cadets. The MC looks at the academy building and silently thinks that attending that place would be a waste of time. The group of cadets gathers in the immense frozen forest, while the test's basic rules are explained to everyone. To win, the team must eliminate all opponents from the field or capture the flag at the enemy team's base. The sensors attached to the white uniforms will register the hits, and anyone taking a lethal shot will be instantly eliminated. One of the cadets raises his hand to speak to the masked instructor and asks an important question about the match. He suggests using a different battlefield, claiming it would be unfair to fight there since the young master has never visited the area. The hero interrupts the cadet, calmly stating there is absolutely no need to change the official training location. He smiles sarcastically, claiming he will win anyway, and prefers to fight wherever is most comfortable for them. All the cadets on the rival team fall dead silent, glaring at the boy with looks of pure hate and irritation. The soldiers start burning with rage behind their masks, unable to believe the sheer petulance of that child. They complain, saying the brat thinks he is the commander himself, just because he is the military leader's legitimate heir. They accuse the boy of refusing the battlefield change just to use it as a silly excuse in case he loses. The group leader puts on his protective goggles and firmly orders his comrades to stop talking behind his back. He maturely deduces that the little master preferred to fight alone just to avoid internal conflicts. Within the team, he explains that for an experienced warrior, it is much better to fight alone than to have allies who don't know how to cooperate. The young man adds that if the heir got hurt, the blame would fall on the soldiers tasked with protecting him there. The young master in the gray uniform holds up his index finger to reveal the third and most important point of his strategy. He points out that the boy's short stature makes it easy for him to hide in the snow, making individual combat an advantage. Based on this, the bespectacled guy concludes the opponent will focus on just one single specific objective to win. He is absolutely certain that the little hero will try to sneak into their base to capture the valuable flag. He knows that since the boy can't beat everyone at once, he will wait for a moment of distraction to strike the flagpole. The soldiers listen to the explanation and deduce that the boy's taunts were just a tactic to throw them off balance. The cadets start to admire the little hero's intelligence, but the group leader remains absolutely silent. They conclude the opponent is taking the test very seriously and decide to return the respect by fighting at full strength. The leader orders his comrades to advance toward the opponent's base, making as much noise as possible in the snow. He plans to use his friends as bait to draw the boy out while he hides in the forest as a sniper. The young man adjusts his protective mask, confirming with the soldiers that this will be the definitive plan for victory. He gives the starting order, telling the cadets to advance through the frozen forest to corner the little adversary. The soldiers respond to the command in unison and start running in formation down the immense snow-covered slope. The group advances tightly through the cold forest, keeping an eye on their surroundings to try to spot the small target hiding at the top of a tree. The hero uses his binoculars and is amused to see the enemies grouped up like easy targets. He lets out a slight smile and decides to kick off his silent counterattack against the clueless opponents. One of the cadets pushing through the frozen forest suddenly hears a strange sound from behind and gets very tense. The hero walks silently through the snowy forest, thinking it is finally time to warm up for combat. The enemy leader waits patiently in his position, carefully watching the area around the base and the main flagpole. Upon hearing distant gunshots, the attentive young man in the gray uniform realizes his bold opponent is getting closer. He knows the boy will come his way very soon and decides to double his focus so he doesn't get caught off guard. He recalls the director's advice about the real dangers of underestimating that mysterious child's abilities. The cadet remembers that at first, he didn't understand the respect shown to the boy, but now he wants to figure out how to defeat him. Upon seeing the hero again, he realizes in shock that that confident smile isn't fake, but rather pure combat enjoyment. He feels the boy acts like a true, relentless predator who has fun cornering his prey in the snow. Suddenly, the young man notices an absolute, deafening silence in the forest and wonders what could have happened there. He finds the opponent's delay odd and begins to suspect that his entire team has already been totally eliminated from the test. Before he could react, the cadet is hit dead on from behind by a blue paint shot from the little hero calm. Confident footsteps break the snow's silence, announcing the boy's absolute victory over the rival leader. The hero appears laughing and sarcastically comments that the distance between them and winning the test was very short. He praises Platon's talent, but the cadet is completely paralyzed, not understanding how he got caught so easily there. The guy asks how he knew his position, and the boy reveals he noticed his absence among the soldiers who attacked him. The cadet tries to stretch out the conversation to try and locate the boy, but realizes the opponent is way too smart. He tries to listen for the adversary's footsteps, but silence reigns again in the frozen forest, keeping him on high alert. The young man panics upon noticing that the MC simply vanished from his sight inexplicably. Next, he is surprised from behind by a strike from a rubber training knife delivered by the clever boy. The hero points out that he can hide his face, but he will never be able to hide his height and the rhythm of his steps. The cadet falls to the ground totally defeated, feeling the weight of humiliation from that crushing loss against the boy. The young man in the gray uniform can't believe in his thoughts that he was bested so easily by a child. The uniform's sensors register the final blow, confirming the complete elimination of the enemy team's leader from the test. He closes his eyes in dismay as he accepts the terrible and bitter outcome of that military combat simulation. Through his uniform's visor, the young master looks at the enemy team's flagpole, confirming that victory is very close. He aims precisely at the final target, knowing he masterfully accomplished every single one of his dangerous goals at the academy. The cadet realizes that by being much lighter and smaller, the MC can move incredibly nimbly in the snow. This physical advantage makes it almost impossible to detect the silent approach and the sound of the adversary's footsteps. The little master finishes the fight with a dead-on strike, ensuring the definitive capture of the opposing base. The system's virtual panel announces the end of the test with the young heroes team achieving a crushing, absolute victory. The cadet asks in shock if the boy really defeated his entire squad all by himself before coming after him at the base. The young man sits in the snow frustrated, listening to the hero calmly confirm that everything happened exactly like that. The MC drinks water and mockingly claims he is strong enough to take down any army without help. The boy praises the rival leader's intelligence and says a normal child would never have a chance against his strategy. He confesses he joined the test just to personally evaluate Platon's real level of military skill. The hero praises his opponent's quick thinking and great leadership as the two talk sitting in the trench. He smiles friendlily and tells the surprised young man in the gray uniform that he just successfully passed his test. The little master invites him to be his personal assistant in the army right after graduating from the military academy. Later, the loyal, bespectacled ally reports to the commander to hand over the training evaluation results. He displays the feedback reports written by the very cadets who faced the young MC in the simulation. The imposing commander listens to everything in absolute silence, showing great curiosity about the written testimonies. The first cadet reports in outrage that he has never seen a 10-year-old child fight so dirtily and treacherously. The report says the boy approached two distracted guards securing the rear of the base. He lied, saying the commander himself had sent an urgent secret message to deliver to them there, and as soon as the guards got closer to listen, the boy shot mercilessly, taking out the opponents in a cowardly way. The soldier says he got startled by the gunshot noise and turned around only to see his comrade falling unconscious to the ground. He ran over worried, thinking his friend had gotten really hurt during the confusion of that simulated combat. But upon stepping closer to help, he was surprised by the boy himself, who coldly stabbed him with the training weapon. Another report firmly claims the little master acts like an experienced, cold combat veteran. The document concludes that the boy's ability to predict moves and create strategies is simply mind-blowing. The report describes that the young master executed his entire plan with extreme precision and calm in a brilliant way. The cadet reports, impressed, that it felt like the boy had already fought against them dozens of times in the past. Merceau listens to the statements with a very focused, thoughtful look behind his silver glasses. The assistant asks a young blue-haired cadet what her real impression of the master's performance was. The girl responds spontaneously that she considers the young master a true god of combat after the training. The assistant decides to ignore the exaggerated opinions and concludes the commander just wanted to show off his son's talent. The leader calls Merceau seriously, and the loyal assistant immediately steps up to hear his boss's orders. The commander surprises his subordinate by firmly declaring that Hayden will personally lead the upcoming war. The bombshell news spreads quickly through the prestigious military academy, leaving all the cadets shocked. The MC walks through the mansion, laughing at the assistant's concern about him leading the grand military force to avoid protests from the officers. Merceau's name was officially registered as the campaign's main leader. The bespectacled assistant gets annoyed and warns the little master that a drill and a real war are entirely different things. He honestly admits the boy's tactics are impressive, but insists the actual danger is much greater. The man in the white uniform analyzes the complex combat route drawn by the young MC with extreme seriousness. He suspiciously points out that the boy knows that dangerous region, as well as if he had fought there before. The hero pretends reading maps is something very simple to avoid revealing his regressor secrets to the assistant. He decides to change the subject right away and slams his hand on the table, stating they need to focus on actual combat. The MC straightforwardly points out that the way his troops currently fight is extremely inefficient. He explains using drawings that paralyzing the monster first, just to then destroy its vital crystal, is a waste of time. He mockingly questions the need to perform that old, slow, and inefficient process against the monsters. The hero guarantees that if they focus on destroying the energy crystal right from the start, the whole battle will end much faster. The assistant counters, explaining that the crystal's position varies from monster to monster, making it easy to spot only in small ones. The young man insists that in massive, dangerous species, guessing the exact location of the vital gem is almost impossible. The boy is amused by the assistant's seriousness when he claims his tactic of destroying the crystal directly is impossible. The hero displays a slight smirk in absolute silence, keeping a major, secret tactical advantage to himself. He thinks back to his old life as a pro gamer and wonders in his thoughts how many thousands of monsters he has already taken down. He knows perfectly well that the vital crystal is always located in the most protected area of every creature's body in that world. The MC smiles, claiming his gamer instincts reveal exactly where each creature's weak spot is. The bespectacled assistant adjusts his glasses in complete disbelief at the boy's confident statement. The boy excitedly declares they will carry out that military subjugation campaign with the maximum possible efficiency later on. The little hero rests in his chambers in the middle of the night while messing with his virtual system's glowing screen. He knows the assistant wasn't fully convinced, but is satisfied just having laid out his entire action plan. Suddenly, a new chat notification starts flashing on the floating screen, drawing the MC's immediate attention. He reads the message sent by the user, who confusedly asks if there are two players with the same nickname as him in the chat. The boy notices that the chat notifications from survivors in other areas are piling up very fast. He decides to check the unread messages first, and notices user Junkie sent a very weird warning to the group. The user says he got a message from someone using the same dopamine codename, and the hero remembers an old rival. The other impersonator of his identity gets him quite intrigued as he lies on his comfortable bed in the dark room. The MC analyzes the messages and finds out that almost all active players received the same mysterious announcement. One survivor complains he was the only one who didn't get anything, while the others try to crack the mystery of the sender. The system reveals that contact with other zones is indeed possible, but restrictions still make easy item trades difficult. In fact, the secret message received by the group stated that, for now, communication between regions is still heavily restricted. The hero continues silently reading the urgent alerts sent by the survivors, who seem very worried about the future. The military conquest plan drawn on the uniform indicates that real battles are approaching at an impressive speed. He looks at the region map and realizes the combat routes are very dangerous and will require everyone's utmost caution. The little hero knows he can't reveal his regressor secrets, but plans to use his knowledge to win. The boy suspects the Unicorn Zone leader is plotting something very sinister behind everyone else's back. He analyzes the hidden enemy's tactics, knowing the defenses of that high-level region are incredibly strong. The boy checks the user list and notices the warning messages came from an account that had already been deleted. He notes that the public chat member list remains unchanged, confirming that only 8 players are active. The user asks if there are actually 8 people besides him in the chat, and the hero tries to understand what that really means. The MC gets scared thinking about the possibility of his own nickname being duplicated on the others list. He remembers that selecting your own name displays your stats, but clicking someone else's opens a friendship option. He realizes in shock that another unknown player perfectly using his exact digital identity was already there from the start. The hero decides to read the urgent alerts from his friends, who desperately beg him to open the chat room. He brushes off his allies' silly messages, but gets intrigued reading the tense warnings sent by his rival T-Bastard. The MC's eyes go wide in absolute shock upon noticing a crucial, very dangerous detail in his rival's text. The rival reveals that the fake dopamine knew all the secrets of the private conversation they had the day before. The hero wonders who would have the ability to monitor chats and clone his account so flawlessly in the game. The MC smiles maliciously in front of the glowing screen, swearing to uncover that mysterious clone's real identity. The MC gets irritated waiting for an answer while holding his bright tablet in the dark room. On the screen, a message from Dopamine Addict pops up, asking if they weren't already virtual friends from before. He jokes, saying the other guy must be an idiot for accepting 2 friend requests at the same time. The annoyed T-Bastard threatens to end him as soon as they get out of there, but the hero finds it funny how easy he is to anger. The boy begins to wonder how the fraud managed to find out such private details about their conversation. He wonders if his rival spilled the beans, but the guy immediately warns that he only gave short answers to the imposter. The hero asks if there was anything strange in the chat, but the other replies he was always weird anyway. The ally sends a new message revealing he is absolutely certain the imposter is hiding in the Unicorn area. The MC is suspicious of that sudden claim and demands his companion send actual proof of it right away. The mysterious rival shows a fresh tangerine, explaining he got the rare fruit through a recent item trade. The boy is surprised to hear about the rare fruit, since finding any fresh food in the snow is very difficult. In that harsh ice age, finding any fruit is very hard, except in the rich, technological city of scientists. The place has technology so advanced they managed to make the entire zone float in the sky to survive their lab houses, various flasks, and cutting-edge scientific research to keep the place running. With a unique self-sufficiency system, the floating area is the only one that manages to preserve Earth's old ecosystem. The hero concludes this indeed confirms the mysterious fraud's location inside the rich unicorn colony. The ally asks if he's going over there to investigate, but the MC decides to ignore the fraud for now. The hero plans to let the imposter clear the zones in his place while he prepares to take over the unicorn. He ponders that the usurper likely knows all of his game guides and secret strategies to advance. The system questions if he really has the necessary courage to destroy the impenetrable fortress he built himself. Young dopamine addict starts to laugh mysteriously, leaving the guy beside him quite intrigued and suspicious. The mysterious companion remembers that his rival was an expert at creating perfect strategies to counter his own guides. He smiles confidently, asking why the young man is acting like that battle is impossible to win. The partner reveals he knows the opponent's playstyle because he kept showing up in his feed trying to best him. The young man feels pretty awkward finding out he was being watched, and the MC just observes the scene, finding it all very strange. The boy calculates his chances of victory against the rival would be 60% since he doesn't have an absolute advantage. He knows the technological barrier between the regions is huge, but believes there is still a viable path to win. The companion asks to be notified if the fraud sends messages again, and the hero notices he's become quite obedient. Suddenly, a new message notification pops up on the tablet screen, drawing the young master's attention in the dark room. User Home Protector sends several messages demanding some action, and the MC gets annoyed with all that talking on the screen. The guy asks if the hero still intends to take him to the unicorn colony later, leaving the boy quite confused. The user admits he just wants to take advantage of the situation, and the hero merely replies he will think about his proposal. The MC tells him to check if the protective barriers between the regions have truly disappeared completely. He lies in bed, thinking that the region closest to his ally happens to be that extremely dangerous area. The boy admits having a terrible gut feeling about the player who managed to unlock that mysterious territory. He waits anxiously in front of the virtual screens, but gets frustrated, noticing he hasn't received any reply from the other users. Lying down calmly, the young master decides he will face anyone who shows up because he isn't afraid of losing. The scene shifts to a beautiful village with wooden buildings surrounded by snow-covered mountains during the harsh winter. A heavy black combat boot stomps firmly on the soft layer of snow, starting a new journey in the perilous frozen world. The companion yells complaining about military discipline in the snow, and the MC gets annoyed by all that noise in the forest. Today's plan is to test the new military ration and teach the technique of finding valuable gems before leaving the safe zone. Meursault smiles, seeing the young men's excitement, but the hero points out that the blonde-haired guy is already a 20-year-old adult, and the red-haired boy observes the surroundings with a curious and slightly worried look in the snow. The boy asks if it's safe to leave the fortress, and the leader reassures the group, saying they won't stray too far from there. Meursault announces that an injured monster was spotted in the area and that they should try to track it down as soon as possible. He explains that with the new method, they can extract the precious gem from the monster without having to hurt the creature even more. The MC agrees with the search orders, keeping his tablet handy for any eventuality in the forest. The blonde-haired young man holds up a small star-shaped candy and asks if the military rations worked out. They chat about the bad taste of the protein sweet, and the hero takes the chance to ask if he's been practicing his healing. The blonde guy reveals he can now heal others, as long as he maintains direct physical contact with the spell's target. The blonde ally notices the confident smile on the MC's face and asks why he is so smug. The MC says he is just proud of him, but his friend complains, thinking he is being condescending. Meursault suddenly raises his hand, asking for absolute silence so they can pay attention to the frozen surroundings. The young master quietly warns he spotted the giant alligator monster asleep in the middle of the snowfield. The red-haired ally examines the monster and notices a fresh wound right on the right side of its body. The MC analyzes the passed-out creature's position and calculates the best route to make a dead-on shot. He knows exactly that the monster's vital point, where the valuable energy crystal is kept, is in a specific area. The hero takes careful aim, calculating that the beast's weak spot is located on the left side of its abdomen. Meursault is extremely impressed by the millimeter precision of the shot that instantly destroyed the crystal. The The boy tells the blonde ally to fire a flare to call for backup, and the young man obeys, grumbling about the bossy tone. He explains that directly attacking the vital point saves combat time and prevents ruining the monster's useful parts. Merceau praises the boy, saying he truly lives up to his father's fame, who was a great war hero. The boy notices the assistant got super excited about the new strategy instead of doubting his great skill. The group decides it's better to keep moving through the forest to avoid greater dangers in that frozen region. Suddenly, a mechanical noise from the sky grabs the MC's immediate attention, who looks up suspiciously. A mysterious man appears flying on a technological board and is surprised to see the hero isn't alone. The boy watches the unknown man's approach as he gently descends from the skies toward the group's camp. The blonde-haired young man's eyes widen in shock as he instantly recognizes the identity of the man who landed. He is totally paralyzed upon realizing the newcomer looks exactly like the legendary dopamine addict. The mysterious man has messy white hair and a deeply dark look that catches everyone's attention. His extremely pale skin matches perfectly with the long white scientist's coat he wears. That striking appearance is very famous and would be easily recognized by any surviving player there. The redhead ally tries to step forward, but the MC gives a subtle signal for everyone to step back and stay calm. He orders Merceau to also hold his ground with his weapon drawn while he takes the lead himself. But the hyped-up blonde guy ignores the danger and runs toward the scientist, shouting the famous player's codename. The hero grabs the blonde companion by the arm and seriously warns him that this man isn't who he thinks he is. The friend gets confused by the warning and asks if the MC isn't recognizing his own idol standing right there. He insists out loud that the white-haired man standing in the snow is indeed the legendary dopamine addict. The mysterious scientist smirks and announces that his true identity can be easily revealed to them. He calmly says the MC just needs to open his character profile in the system to find out everything. The boy opens the system menu, knowing that's the only way to verify the real name and stats of that stranger. Even faced with the opportunity, the hero hesitates for a moment, sensing there is something very wrong with that situation. He notices that the man not only has an appearance identical to his old customization, but also keeps secrets. The MC finds it very strange that this player is the only one who looks like an adult in that world. The blonde-haired young man tries to interact with the man, calling him by an old gaming nickname to test his reaction. The blonde guy lights up when the scientist friendlily recognizes him first, before the hero even speaks up. The mood suddenly gets tense when Merceau and the redhead point their loaded guns at the mysterious man. The blonde panics upon seeing everyone armed and fearfully asks what they've been learning in military training. The scientist cynically asks them to relax, guaranteeing he has absolutely no intention of hurting anyone there. The MC doesn't believe a word of that nonsense and keeps his rifle aimed at his rival's head. The opponent mocks the hero's tension, saying he is so scared he can't even manage to open his profile. The boy admits to himself in his thoughts that he is indeed hesitant to access that man's virtual information. He decides he can no longer run from reality and opens the screen that displays Dopamine Addict's friendly stats right in front of him. The boy is extremely shocked to see the system actually confirms the man has that legendary codename. More than the name, what leaves the hero utterly perplexed is seeing that his title is also identical to Dopamine Addict's. He confusedly asks himself if such an absurd title really existed, and the rival just waits for a reaction from him. The hero demands to know how he managed to do that, but the mysterious scientist pretends not to understand his question. The boy insists on finding out how his rival obtained that codename, but the man warns it's still too early to tell everything. The scientist says they should put that aside and turns to Merceau, stating he needs to check something important. He asks why the hero travels with Merceau, shockingly revealing that in his timeline, he himself had poisoned him. The hero in the white uniform eyes the scientist suspiciously and wonders if he's just a madman pretending to be him. The blonde young man suddenly widens his eyes and seems to have a grand, brilliant revelation about the situation. He confusedly asks why the scientist is the only adult there if everyone else reincarnated as children. The MC feels pretty embarrassed noticing his companion took this long to realize such an obvious detail. The white-haired adversary sighs and mockingly comments that the boy's companion is far too stupid to be useful. He silently reaches for his weapon and decides the best way to solve the problem is to get rid of the young man right now. The little hero senses the imminent danger, and Merceau quickly preps for combat alongside his ally. A quick shot is fired toward the scientist in the lab coat, making him flinch backwards in the middle of the snow. The blonde boy panics, but the MC calmly states he just fired a warning shot. The hot shell casing falls into the snow, letting out smoke, while the hero reveals that they can't take him out anyway. A high-tech blue hexagonal barrier appears, shielding the opponent and confirming he is immune to attacks. The scientist praises the boy's courage, and the hero coldly confesses he would have done the exact same in a combat situation. The white-haired intruder hops onto his hoverboard, declaring with satisfaction that he has concluded his personal check. He reveals he just wanted to make sure the hero was growing up well and leaves the boy completely stunned. The MC burns with hatred at the provocation, but knows his current weapons wouldn't deal any damage to that barrier. The adversary prepares to fly away into the snow, but stops suddenly as he remembers a very important detail. He says with an ironic smile that he still needs to deliver a special parting gift to the little hero. The scientist shoots without mercy, and the deafening shot echoes through the entire snowy forest, leaving the blonde youth in shock. The MC takes a direct hit to the chest, bleeding heavily and falling to his knees in great pain on the cold snow. The opponent stares down at him with a cold, emotionless look before slowly beginning to distance himself from there. He whispers to himself that the boy is indeed very different from him and seems satisfied with what he discovered. The red-haired young man screams in despair for his injured brother in the snow as he watches the enemy escape into the skies. Meursault examines the wound and relays with relief that the shot didn't hit any vital organs, ordering them to focus on containing the bleeding. He orders the redhead to immediately patrol the surroundings to ensure monsters won't attack the injured group. The hero complains about the terrible pain while clutching his bloody chest with the help of his desperate companion beside him. The blonde yells indignantly, calling the scientist a killer, but the hero mockingly points out he is still breathing. The companion cries, not understanding why the MC jumped in front of the shot to protect him from perishing. The little master stares at him seriously and mockingly asks why he thinks he pulled off that crazy stunt. He reaches out a hand holding the healing pill and firmly orders the frightened blonde boy to heal him using his magic. The companion realizes in shock that the hero let himself get shot on purpose just to test his healing powers. The blonde explodes in anger, calling the hero a total lunatic, unable to believe the audacity of that absurd test plan. Even furious, he starts the healing process using his magic, while the glowing particles wrap around the hero. Right after being healed, the boy hears that his friend has an urgent revelation to make about both of their identities. The blonde asks the boy to lean in a bit so he can reveal a secret in a discreet whisper. He whispers, asking what the hero's true identity is, who is quite taken aback by that serious question. The MC stares at him silently, trying to process that unexpected discovery by his partner. The blonde freaks out upon discovering he is dopamine addict and complains that he didn't tell him this before. The hero replies he wouldn't have cooperated if he knew the truth, leaving his companion quite sulky and embarrassed. The boy interrupts the healing, thinking the remaining injury is enough to avoid suspicion from Meursault. The blonde complains a lot about being the only one left out of the secret, while the MC ignores him in silence. He explains he needed to warn Taijung first because of the imposter, and the blonde curses the friend's personality. The MC seriously warns that the scientist who attacked them is way more dangerous than the first fraud. He reveals that the white-haired man was capable of unlocking the unicorn zone and sending fake messages to everyone. The hero concludes that the barriers between the regions have disappeared, allowing dangerous players to move freely. The boy worriedly highlights that the biggest danger of all is the fact that his rival has the body of a grown man. The blonde companion speculates if the unicorn's advanced technology was used to force the adversary's growth. The hero firmly denies it as he wipes the blood from his skin, believing there is another hidden reason behind it. The boy admits to himself in his thoughts that he still doesn't know what that enemy's true mystery is. He knows he is the real dopamine addict, but feels bothered by the fact that he has so much in common with the clone. The MC feels a deep sense of unease remembering the scientist's provocation and decides to focus on getting stronger. The red-haired ally runs hurriedly through the snow, warning that Meursault is already returning with the rest of the troops. Hearing the alert, the MC and his blonde-haired companion quickly straighten themselves up in the soft snow to act natural. The little master seriously states they must finish discussing that mysterious topic at a better time. He orders his allies to stay absolutely quiet and not tell anyone what really went down in that place. The scene shifts to the imposing facade of the military base, where the officers are chatting about the latest events. The guards whisper in surprise, commenting that the supreme leader didn't even care about his own son's severe injury. The man with the eye patch visits the MC and relievedly comments that it's a good thing the boy inherited the mystical power of healing. The commander firmly asks who the mysterious shooter was that tried to take the boy's life in the middle of the forest, sitting on the bed. The hero carefully ponders every word he will say, so as not to raise any suspicion from the commander. He answers vaguely, saying the culprit is someone he used to know in the past, but doesn't know anymore. The father straightforwardly asks if the shooter could be an enemy of the hero from before he underwent his temporal regression. The MC deduces the bespectacled assistant must have reported the Korean words they exchanged during combat. He knows he must never let the man find out that he is actually a surviving player from another world. The boy tries to understand why his rival came from the unicorn colony and decides to change the subject of that conversation. He suggests a dangerous new player might have emerged after his regression and that they should focus on finding him soon. The commander considers the possibility raised by the boy and agrees that focusing on the new player might be the right path. The MC cheers mentally, thinking he managed to fool the man and escape that awkward situation. However, the Supreme Leader surprises him with a direct order for the boy to enroll in the prestigious military academy. The hero tries to argue against the decision, but his dad warns he still isn't fully used to his new body. He pats his son's head, warning him to never lower his guard and to always remember his mother's tragic fate. He explains the boy won't need to spend 6 full years studying at the academy because of the time crunch. He wants his son to train just until he adapts to the small body and can take command as an official officer. The boy accepts his fate, thinking this time at the military academy might serve as a temporary break for him. He ironically comments that it would be a great opportunity to learn how to dodge live bullets, and the commander is left confused. The MC knows full well that his sudden entry into the military school is going to make the other cadets extremely furious. In the classroom, the cadets start gossiping disdainfully about the 10-year-old boy who got in purely because of his connections. The soldiers who lost the simulated test to the child embarrassedly lament having stained their team's honor. The calm and proud Platon tries to reassure his comrades, saying they fought fairly and cleanly in the test. Meursault authoritatively orders that no one say a single word about the results of that secret training. The students resignedly accept the silence, but are interrupted by an official announcement from the instructor walking into the room. The officer in a black suit takes the stage to make an important and surprising announcement to the cadets in the class. Platon watches with great attention and suspicion the arrival of the mysterious boy, introduced by the academy instructor. The officer introduces young Hayden and announces he will join all of the class's training sessions from now on. The boy flashes a radiant and extremely confident smile, making the rivals on Platon's team very uncomfortable. The students feel they will be the butt of the joke if they accept that situation and burn with rage, seeing the mockery on the boy's face. The instructor asks if any cadet objects to the boy's qualifications, and the proud Platon immediately raises his hand. The young man declares out loud in front of everyone that he has some important words to personally address to the new student. The boxer warns that the cadets the hero defeated before might have been fools, but guarantees the rest of the class isn't pathetic like that. He stares down the MC with a very cold and focused look, ready to challenge that child's authority. The hero sneers at the challenge, asking his light-haired rival if he really believes he can take him down. He taunts the students, saying that even though his father accepted him right away, they seem to need another practical lesson. The boy takes a step forward, claiming he didn't win the first test out of pure luck, and proposes settling the dispute right then and there. The MC suggests the new dispute between them happen through a new official military combat simulation. The opponent accepts the challenge right away, thinking the little hero is just an arrogant kid who needs to be taught a lesson. He suggests a 6-on-6 fight, splitting the groups between Platon's team and the squad formed by the defeated ones. The boy accepts the terms proposed by his opponent, but decides to impose a single, very dangerous special condition for the match. The MC declares that to win, he demands that not a single member of his team be eliminated during the entire combat. He warns that if even one of his teammates is defeated, he will accept defeat and give total victory to his rival. Platon gets deeply infuriated by the bold proposal and asks if the child is underestimating their abilities.